The bride, Aurora, is my husband David's childhood friend. Aurora's groom is David's older brother, Joseph. But Aurora's real target isn't Joseph. It's David. How dare she? To protect my beloved David and kind Joseph, I stood up to give a speech. I am Natalie, 27 years old. I married David, who is 2 years older than me, half a year ago. David has a brother, Joseph, who is 1 year older than him. Joseph is kind and quiet, quite different from the active and sporty David, but they are close brothers. From the first time I met Joseph, he welcomed me and smiled, saying, "Please take care of David." I could sense from David's way of talking that he admired Joseph, and I wanted to get along with him as family. We chose an apartment a little away from my in-laws' house as our new home. We have a good relationship with my father-in-law, Elijah, and my mother-in-law, Ellie, who occasionally come to visit. Our married life was going well. One thing that puzzled me was that David rarely wanted to visit his parents' house. When meeting Elijah and Ellie, we would usually meet outside or invite them to our home. One day, when we were out, "Shall we drop by my in-laws' house to deliver this souvenir?" I suggested. "I'm tired today, let's invite them over another time," David said. Despite the harmonious family relationships, I found it odd. One day, we received the good news that Joseph was getting married. "Wow, that's great! I didn't know he had a partner." "Yeah, Joseph hasn't had a girlfriend for years, so it's surprising that he's suddenly getting married. He said he would come and talk about it." Maybe he just hadn't mentioned that he had a girlfriend? "Yeah, Joseph is shy, so that could be possible." A few days later, on a day off, the video intercom rang. "This is Aurora, Joseph's wife. I came to greet you." "Huh? Oh, yes." Without suspicion, I opened the entrance. Although there was no appointment, I thought Joseph and Aurora had come to greet us. "Natalie, who is it? It seems like Joseph and Aurora have come." "What? I didn't hear anything about it." When I opened the door, there was a woman standing alone. Without greeting me, she rushed in and ran up to David. "Oh, David! I finally found you." "What?" I was stunned. "Aurora! How did you find this place?" David seemed genuinely shocked. The woman called Aurora turned to glare at me. "So, you're the woman who married David? I finally found you. What trick did you use?" "Excuse me? Who are you, suddenly barging in like this?" "I'm the most important person to him. In other words, we've been like that since forever." "What?" I looked at him in disbelief, but he remained silent with an expression that couldn't hide his discomfort. "I'll never accept or forgive the fact that you married him. I'll be the one by his side for life." "Enough! It has nothing to do with you who I marry." I felt a mix of shock and relief. This woman, Aurora, didn't seem to be David's ex-girlfriend or mistress. But didn't she introduce herself as Joseph's wife? "Just leave." "Why?" "David, you're happy to finally see me, right?" "Happy? Of course not. You're just embarrassed. You lied about being Joseph's wife to get in here, didn't you? How did you know Joseph got married?" "It's not a lie. I married Joseph. I found this address from mail addressed to him." "Stop lying." "I'm not lying. So now I can always be with you too." David was speechless. He looked like he was in despair. "If that's true, you should have come with Joseph." "Huh?" I thought the same. "Well, Joseph is busy today." "Just go. If it's true, I'll meet you when Joseph introduces you." David, we finally met after so long. David, not giving her a chance to argue, somehow managed to push the shouting Aurora out. The video intercom rang a few more times after that, but we ignored it. Once things had calmed down, David explained Aurora to me. He said that she had been a childhood friend since their parents' homes were close, and they used to play together as kids in preschool. However, as they grew up, her persistence became more noticeable. She had been obsessively attached to David and his brothers, especially to David, who was the same age as her. She would come to pick him up in the morning and after school, and on holidays, she would barge into their house uninvited. When they got mobile phones, she would register his number without permission and check his texts and call history. He found it so annoying that he started to hurry home and hang out with his male friends outside. As a high schooler, David, who was tall and athletic, became popular with the opposite sex. But every time he got a girlfriend, Aurora would interfere. She'd say things like, "David can't do anything without me," or "I'll come to your room tonight," in front of my girlfriend. I've never let her into my room, though. Wow, that's intense! She'd ambush me both in the morning and after school. If I talked to her even a little, she'd twist everything to her advantage. It got to the point where I felt scared. But was there something that made her think that way? Like, did you ever tell her you liked her when you were kids? No, never. I swear, not even once. She got this delusion from watching anime about being the heroine fought over by twin friends. Except in our case, it's brothers, not twins. So unlike fiction, that never happened in reality. Seriously, she's not normal. I ignored her texts and calls, but she was so persistent that I had to change my phone number. Wow, that's tough! I couldn't change the fact that our parents' homes were close, so I chose a distant university to get away from that demon. So, the reason you don't want to go to your parents' house is because of her? Yeah. I never wanted to see her again, and I didn't want to drag you into it, so I kept quiet. I'm sorry. It's okay, I understand now. But do you think it's true that she married Joseph? No way! The idea of her becoming my SIL is a nightmare. But it wasn't a nightmare, it was reality. We were formally introduced to Aurora as Joseph's wife at my in-laws' house. David and I were both shocked, and David's face showed it, but we couldn't cause a scene at the announcement of happy news. When I saw her again, I was surprised to hear she was marrying Joseph. Ellie said calmly. Aurora responded enthusiastically. Ellie, I look forward to your continued support. I've known Joseph and David since forever, so I understand them better than anyone. You can leave it to me. She then gave me a triumphant smile. Aurora, David has Natalie now. Joseph gently reminded her. They said they started dating after reconnecting 3 months ago, but did Joseph not know Aurora's true nature? A few days later, when I returned home from work, I found Aurora standing in front of the house. What? You came home first? I came to see David. Hello, Aurora. Do you need something from my husband? Don't call him your husband. Huh? Ugh, I can't stand it. I was supposed to be David's wife. What do you mean by that? I'm telling you, David and I have always had that kind of relationship. That's just your delusion, isn't it? You're wrong. You don't know anything. I've always supported David. I woke him up in the morning, helped him with his homework, cheered for him at sports events. It's because of me that David is who he is today. What, are you his mom or something? She talks as if she raised him, conveniently omitting the fact that they lost touch during university. This isn't going to be easy, just as David warned me. I need to handle this carefully. Then why haven't you ever dated David? We don't need to put it into words, our hearts have always been connected. Then why did he marry me? Huh? That's because he is so kind. He gave me up to Joseph. What about you? If you love David, why did you marry Joseph? Joseph has loved me since forever, too. Since David stepped aside, there was no other choice. But now I can be with David all the time. Oh, I'm such a sinful woman. What? This is bad. This is really bad. I remembered a story from a friend who was a passionate fan of an idol. She talked about how some fans would track down the idol's home or place of stay, stake them out, follow them during their off time, and commit acts that infringe on privacy or amount to stalking. Not long ago, an idol suffering from such extreme fan behavior had taken a stand and asked for it to stop. However, these fans were said to be pleased, thinking, "They recognize my existence, I'm supporting them, and I'll always be nearby." This delusional, uncommunicative woman in front of me is exactly that. In any case, David isn't here, so please leave. Well, fine. If we live nearby, we can meet anytime. Huh? I'm looking for a new place around here. There's no point if I'm not close to him. What? You wouldn't say you're against us living nearby, would you? Aurora smirked maliciously, leaving me speechless. Well, I'll come back when David is alone. Humming a tune, she left. That night, I told David about Aurora's visit. Ugh, I knew she'd show up. That's why I didn't want her to find out where we live. And she said she's looking for a place nearby. Why did Joseph marry her? Joseph has always been quiet and easily pushed around, but even I thought this sudden marriage was weird, so I talked to him about it. Is that why you were late today? Yeah. Actually. What? What he told me shocked me. That sounds suspicious, doesn't it? I said the same thing, but Joseph, being the kind person he is, doesn't suspect a thing. I want to look into it. I want Joseph to be truly happy. Yeah, I feel the same way. Will you help me, Natalie? Of course. In no time, the day of Joseph and Aurora's wedding arrived. The ceremony smoothly transitioned to the reception, with the program proceeding as planned. After the initial greetings, it was finally time for our speech. The MC introduced us, and we stood together at the microphone. I'm David, the groom's younger brother. And I'm Natalie, David's wife. What? It's not just David? Aurora frowned in surprise. Yes, David was the one originally asked to give the speech. I want David to give the speech. I know it's tough, but I want to hear your honest feelings about me marrying Joseph. She had said, lost in her own world. David had a reason for agreeing to what he would normally have refused. David, the groom's younger brother, and his wife, Natalie. I introduced ourselves again, making sure everyone knew our relationship, then looked at Aurora. Oh? Aurora, where's the usual? What? Aurora's voice slipped out in surprise. You know, the usual. Every time you see me, you say, "You're not David's wife, I am." Wait. Aurora panicked. She said this to me countless times. That she has a deep, long-standing relationship with my David. What? What do you mean? The room began to buzz with whispers. David started to speak. Aurora and I have been friends since childhood, but I swear we never had that kind of relationship. Until recently, when she said she was marrying Joseph, I hadn't seen her for years. And the moment we met again, she started telling Natalie these lies about our relationship. What are you saying, David? You're making it sound like I was taken from you by Joseph. Is this some sort of skit? Aurora tried to play it off, her voice strained with effort. Aurora, why did you marry Joseph? What do you mean? Because I love him, of course. I'm sorry, David. But we can still be close as family. You love Joseph? Really? Of course I do. If that were true, we could have celebrated your marriage. What? But I can't forgive you for deceiving kind-hearted Joseph into this marriage. What? Deceiving? What are you talking about? The reason you got married was because you got pregnant, right? Wait, you know? Yes, that's right. How many months along are you? You don't seem to have any morning sickness. My question made Aurora visibly uneasy. Well, it ended in disappointment. These things happen, right? How cruel to bring up something so sad on a joyous occasion. Aurora started pretending to cry, glaring at me. You don't feel sad. You were never pregnant to begin with. What? Aurora froze. Joseph, standing next to her, looked shocked. What does she mean? Joseph, don't listen to her. She's lying. I told you I was pregnant, didn't I? Yeah, that's why I decided to marry you. Exactly. But then, right after we got married, you said the pregnancy ended in disappointment. Isn't that right, Joseph? Yeah. Joseph replied hesitantly, and David spoke up. It was all a lie. She was never pregnant. What? David, what are you saying? Even if you're upset. Aurora started to panic as Joseph looked on in surprise. I pressed the button on a voice recorder. A voice began to play, a conversation between Aurora and another woman. In that case, I'll marry Joseph. That's the older brother, right? Yeah. I finally managed to bump into him. We've had a few drinks together, but he's a lightweight, so next time I'll get him drunk and take him to a hotel. If I tell him I'm pregnant, he'll definitely marry me. Whoa, isn't that going too far? You like the younger brother, don't you? But I don't mind Joseph. He's kind and does whatever I say. Once I marry Joseph, David will realize his love for me and come to take me away. I can't wait. The shocking content of Aurora's delighted voice made the room go cold. Why? How? Aurora's face went pale as she shouted, and Joseph stared at her with a serious expression. Aurora, what does this mean? The recording continued. So, what happened? Just as planned. I told him with teary eyes that I was pregnant, and he panicked, saying he'd take responsibility. He's such a nice guy. Are you really going to marry him? Yes. Now I can be with David forever, openly. Gentle Joseph and assertive David fighting over me, the girl they've both loved since childhood. Isn't it perfect? As everyone stood in stunned silence, David glared at Aurora with a frightening expression. You really are a terrible person. Doing this to Joseph, who means so much to me, I'll never forgive you. What? Aurora was pale and trembling. How did you get that recording? Your friend said you sometimes talk about dangerous things, so she recorded several conversations just in case she ever needed them. I responded calmly. What? This makes me the victim. Is that so? You had an affair with that friend's boyfriend before, didn't you? That's when they started recording you. Aurora's face turned even paler at David's words. Wah! Did David ask me about my friend just to? I also heard a recording where you bragged about your ongoing affair with a married boss. Wah! Aurora's voice trembled with even more surprise. I was stupid to think I could build a family with you just because you said you were pregnant. Stop it! Stop it already! Joseph, David, you're both crazy. Why are you bullying me? The one who's crazy is you. David cut her off bluntly. What? This is all David's fault. You've always liked me, so why did you marry that woman? I've never liked you. Not even once. Joseph added coldly. You'll have to take full responsibility for what you've done. I'm Joseph's wife, right? Joseph will forgive me, right? Don't be ridiculous. You have to take responsibility for what you did to him. If you don't, I'll report all your past stalking and other troublesome behavior to the appropriate authorities. What are you talking about? I know you harassed my ex-girlfriend, stole and opened mail from my parents' and grandpa's house to find my address in college. Wah! Do you know mail tampering is a crime? How about I list every little thing you've done? No, please stop. Aurora slumped to her knees, crying as he continued. The guests only watched her coldly. The reception was, of course, cancelled, and her parents were pale as they apologized and returned the gifts. Aurora, who lied about being pregnant to rush the marriage, angered not only David and Joseph but also Elijah and Ellie. She had to pay for the entire wedding and compensation to Joseph in the divorce. Because some colleagues from her workplace attended the wedding, news of Aurora's true nature spread quickly, forcing her to quit her job. Her affair with her boss became known to his wife, who also demanded compensation. Aurora, with no savings left, was disowned by her parents and had to promise never to approach David's family again. She was left with nothing, no job, no friends, and now lives alone in a remote place. But I don't know. Aurora was obsessed with us brothers, and when that didn't work out, she started hitting on married men and her friends' boyfriends or frequenting places where men looked for hookups. She's really hopeless. David was still fuming as he reported to Joseph, who had come over. Joseph, I'm really sorry for ruining the wedding. I'm sorry, too. It was necessary to reveal the truth at the wedding because that was the condition for the person who provided the recording. They wanted Aurora's true nature to be exposed in front of everyone. It's okay. Looking back, I should have sensed something was off when Aurora showed no sadness. I should have noticed something was wrong when she desperately tried to get David's address and showed hostility toward Natalie. If you'd talked to us before getting married, Joseph wouldn't have to go through a divorce. It frustrates me. It was an expensive lesson for someone with little experience in relationships. Joseph, you're too kind. Thank you. I'm sorry for all the trouble Natalie had to deal with. I'm fine. But I believe there's someone out there who will truly appreciate how wonderful Joseph is. David nodded in agreement, and Joseph smiled bashfully. 2 years passed. I wonder what kind of person she is. I'm excited. I've met her once. She's gentle and kind. David and I were driving to his parents' house. Joseph was getting married, and we were invited to a dinner party to celebrate. At first, her parents were concerned about Joseph's divorce history, but they came to understand and appreciate him. That's great. Joseph didn't do anything wrong. Yeah. His fiancé explained that to her parents and convinced them. It sounds like she really loves Joseph for who he is. I think so. She works under him at the company and has admired him for a long time. It's wonderful that our family is growing. Yeah. And next month, we'll have one more member. David looked at my pregnant belly. I'm happy about Joseph's wedding, but I'm even more excited about this. Me too. I nodded with a big smile at David, who was smiling gently at me. Honey, please go visit Sarah. She really needs us right now. Leave me alone. I'm at a critical point in my career, and this could be my chance to finally get that promotion. What will you do if I lose this opportunity? Our standard of living will never improve. I don't mind. I was planning to get a part-time job anyway, so I can take care of Sarah's needs. But Roger just said, "You just don't understand anything." Taylor, don't you think that's a bit off? We need more data before we can conclude anything. So, what should we do? I asked, and both of them looked stern. Whatever the reason, if she's being given some unclear medication, we need to address that first. All right. But what should I do? What can I do? Then Nancy said, "Call an ambulance." An ambulance? Please, Taylor. This is your responsibility. Bro emphasized to me. In the meantime, we'll investigate that doctor. Right. For our sweet niece, we'll stop at nothing. My name is Taylor, and I'm 37 years old. I live with my husband Roger and our daughter Sarah. I've been married to Roger, who was a colleague at work, for 13 years. Sarah just started middle school this spring, so I was thinking about getting a part-time job and changing our routine a bit. We thought we were living peacefully enough, but really, until very recently. Mom, my leg hurts. One day during spring break, Sarah came home and suddenly said this. Oh my, what's wrong? Where does it hurt? It's from my knee. It feels dull and deep inside. It's rare for Sarah to say something like this. Realizing we needed to see a doctor, we decided to visit the nearby Smith family clinic. We've been going to the Smith family clinic since we moved here after getting married. We've been under their care since the days of the previous doctor. Now, the daughter of the previous doctor, Dr. Charlene, is the head of the clinic, looking after the health of the townspeople. We are one of those families. When Dr. Charlene saw Sarah's condition, her expression clouded. Is something wrong? I asked. Well, let's take an X-ray to be sure. She suggested. Sarah looked at me anxiously. It's going to be okay, I said, sending her off. And then, the results came back. This isn't good, Dr. Charlene said with a serious look. What do you mean by not good? We'll discuss it in detail later. But, I tilted my head and Dr. Charlene continued. She needs to be hospitalized for a while. When Sarah was admitted, I was called in alone and was told clearly. Sarah has osteosarcoma. This is a type of pediatric cancer. Osteosarcoma. Pediatric cancer. Hearing these words was enough to scare me. Osteosarcoma reminded me of a comic I once read, where the protagonist had it. I asked fearfully, does this mean she might need to have her leg amputated or something like that? In the comic, the protagonist was told that. No, I don't think it will come to that, but if we leave it untreated, it could become very serious. So, let's start treatment early. I had no choice but to trust Dr. Charlene's words. When it came to treatment, I had no other recourse. And that was the same for my husband, Roger. When I first told Roger about Sarah's illness, he said to me, "That's tough, but it'll be all right. Let's leave it to Dr. Charlene." Then he went to bed, saying he had a busy day ahead. Honestly, our relationship as a married couple was far from ideal. I found myself convincing myself that maybe this is just how normal families are. We've been married for 13 years. Since Sarah was born, I've been more of a mother than a wife, and I knew Roger no longer saw me as a woman. Gaining weight was part of that reason. There was a reason for it, but it wasn't something I could control. Now, we were more like a family with a child named Sarah, living quietly together rather than a husband and wife. Still, when I heard about our daughter's hospitalization, I thought he could have shown some surprise or concern as a father. Meanwhile, Sarah was upset that she couldn't attend her middle school entrance ceremony. "Mom, how long do I have to stay in the hospital?" "Well, it might take a while." That's all I could say. Honestly, that was all I could tell her. It's boring. I was supposed to start middle school, and now I can't even make friends. Hearing that pained my heart. Sarah had planned to join a sports club and have fun in middle school, but her school life had stumbled right from the start. "By the way, Mom." "Yes?" "Dad never visits me. I can't even see my friends, and the only people I see are you and Dr. Charlene. It's so boring," Sarah said, looking lonely. That was true. Sarah hadn't been able to see anyone recently. Even though it would be nice to have friends visit her, the Smith family clinic didn't allow it. "It's an important time right now." Sarah was given an 4 for her treatment, promoting a certain level of rest, though not absolute. "I wonder if it's really such a critical time." As an amateur, I couldn't understand. And meanwhile, to Roger. "Please, can you go visit Sarah?" I asked him, but his response was, "Sorry, but I'm really busy right now. I don't have time for this." "It's not about me, it's about Sarah," I retorted. "It's okay if you neglect me, but Sarah is your daughter. How can you just ignore her?" "Stop it. Right now, I'm at a crucial point where I might get a promotion. If I miss this chance, what will you do? Our life will remain stagnant." "I don't mind that. I was planning to start a part-time job, and we can think about Sarah's future together." But Roger said, "You don't understand anything." Ending the conversation. "You don't understand anything," was one of Roger's habitual phrases towards me. He had always said that. Our relationship had been shaky since we started dating at work, and his attitude shifted when I introduced him to my brother while considering marriage. I lost my parents in a car accident when I was in high school. Since then, my older brother Melville has been like a guardian to me. By the way, my brother is a veteran nurse. It had been his dream for a long time to become a strong male nurse who could handle jobs that might be difficult for female nurses. And his wife, my sister-in-law Nancy, is a little older than my brother. To outsiders, they might seem like an unusual couple, but I've always thought they were perfect for each other. And they truly look so happy together. I've always thought that having a marriage like theirs would be nice. They are both workaholics and don't have children, so they've adored Sarah since she was born. As I was thinking about my life with Roger, I suddenly remembered that I hadn't told my brother and his wife about Sarah. Oh no, what am I doing? I was certainly shaken by the sudden events, but to think I hadn't contacted the two people who always worry about Sarah. I hurried to contact them. They responded immediately. "Why didn't you tell us sooner?" Nancy and my brother shouted through the tablet screen. "Sorry, I was just so upset." "Well, that's understandable. By the way, is it true that Sarah has pediatric cancer, osteosarcoma? Is she really all right at that clinic?" Nancy tilted her head. "What do you mean? First of all, was the diagnosis made just from an X-ray?" "Sorry, I'm not well versed in this." I realized I had made a mistake as they exchanged glances. When they talk to each other, they can get quite technical, but I'm just a layperson. I tend to forget that sometimes. "Oh, sorry. So, what are they doing for her now?" She's hospitalized and getting daily for drips. They said this time is critical. They exchanged worried looks again. Taylor, that sounds a bit strange. What's strange about it? I'm sorry, but just hearing about it, that method seems medically unsound. Is that so? I tilted my head. To diagnose pediatric cancer or osteosarcoma, you need more than just that. What about blood tests? CT scans? You need various data to make such a diagnosis. My brother chimed in, agreeing. And to hospitalize her immediately and start treatment like that. It seems too off to me. So, what should we do? When I asked, my brother's expression turned stern. First of all, you should stop that treatment immediately. Yes, without a proper diagnosis, you can't administer the right medication. Doing something based on such a diagnosis is strange. Now that you mention it, that might be true. And even if the diagnosis of pediatric cancer is correct, treating her at your local clinic is absurd. My local clinic. Now that you mention it, that's right. There are general hospitals around here, right? Even our place, when dealing with pediatrics, you need proper treatment. You can't just handle it at a clinic. She should be taken to a general hospital. Ah, now that you mention it. Indeed, that's true. What was I thinking? When Sarah was born, wasn't it the same? Smith Family Clinic couldn't handle the delivery, so we were transferred to a major hospital under the guidance of the previous doctor. Thanks to that, both Sarah and I survived. To think I had forgotten such a thing, it's truly shameful. So, what should we do now? For whatever reason, if she's being given such dubious treatment, we need to address that first. I understand. But what should I do? What can I do? Then Nancy said, call an ambulance. An ambulance? Even in town clinics, when they can't handle a case, they often call an ambulance to transfer the patient to a larger hospital. Please, Taylor. This is your responsibility. Bro emphasized to me. In the meantime, we'll investigate that doctor. The word investigate made me pause. What does that mean? Yes, for our dear niece, we won't hesitate to use any means. She's like a daughter to us too. If we don't do our best now, when will we? Hearing Bro and Nancy's supportive words brought tears to my eyes. I'm sorry. Thank you so much. It's okay. By the way, where is Roger? Nancy's question made me tilt my head. Huh? Roger isn't doing anything even though it's a serious matter involving his daughter? Well, Roger is currently overwhelmed with the possibility of becoming a department manager, so he hasn't been able to come to the hospital. The two of them looked at each other and nodded as if they had a realization. Anyway, you call 911 and make sure Sarah can be transferred to the hospital here. Understood. I quickly rushed to the Smith Family Clinic and headed towards Sarah's room. But as I opened the door, what came into my sight was Sarah looking in pain. What happened? I thought, trying to press the nurse call button, but then I remembered the conversation earlier. That's right, 911. I called from inside the hospital. Excuse me, this is the Smith Family Clinic, but my daughter's condition seems strange. The confusion on the other end of the line was palpable, wondering why I was calling from inside a clinic. I'm sorry, but please, we need your help. Please. Repeating my desperate plea, they seemed to sense the urgency. The ambulance arrived shortly. At the same time, another car arrived. It was Nancy's car. From the hospital room window, I saw it pull up in front of the clinic as the ambulance's siren faded. Several paramedics got out of the ambulance. I hurriedly waved from the window.
Over here! Over here!
Responding to my signal, the paramedics entered the hospital.
What is this? What's going on?
A nurse from the clinic rushed out in confusion. Then Nancy, dressed in her white coat, got out of her car and said,
It's an emergency!
She ran towards our room.
Nancy! Sarah is! Taylor, where is Sarah?
Nancy immediately went to Sarah's side, her face turning pale as she saw the 4-bag. She quickly removed the needle from Sarah's arm and checked her pulse and other vital signs before explaining the situation to the paramedics.
I see. This is serious. We need to hurry.
The paramedics understood and placed Sarah on a stretcher. Hearing the commotion, Dr. Charlene rushed into the room.
What are you doing? Why is there an ambulance here? And why Sarah? Who are you? How can you do this without my permission as her primary doctor?
Dr. Charlene glared at both me and Nancy after her outburst. Nancy didn't back down and glared back at Dr. Charlene, saying,
I'm Taylor's sister-in-law, Sarah's aunt. And I'm also a doctor at Central Hospital.
Dr. Charlene was shocked and trembled at those words.
The current symptoms Sarah is experiencing are clearly due to an overdose of this 4-drip. What on earth were you thinking?
Dr. Charlene's face turned pale as she looked at the 4-bag in Nancy's hand.
What is going on here?
I asked.
Well, at the very least, we can guess why Sarah is showing these symptoms now. Anyway, we should head to Central Hospital.
All right.
And you?
Nancy pointed at Dr. Charlene.
I have some serious questions for you later. Prepare yourself, because you've done this to my precious niece.
Then, I heard Dr. Charlene click her tongue. It was the first time I'd seen her act this way.
Let's hurry,
Nancy said, and I quickly followed everyone as we left the scene. However, as I passed by Dr. Charlene, I clearly heard her mutter.
Useless people like her, managing to get support like this.
It was a low, resentful voice. I never imagined she felt this way about me.
Come on, let's go,
Nancy said, and I got into the car. When we finally arrived at Central Hospital's emergency room, Sarah was promptly treated, and her previously lifeless condition quickly improved.
Why on earth was she given such a large dose of this stuff?
The paramedics and doctors were stunned as they examined the 4-bag that had been brought in with Sarah. It was a type of infusion used in treatment, but not something administered in a single day.
Right after being admitted? So instead of helping her recover, she was hospitalized to worsen her condition?
Each incredulous comment from the surrounding doctors shocked me further.
So Dr. Charlene, but why? She was supposed to have been taking good care of her.
When I explained that Sarah had been admitted for a suspected osteosarcoma, the doctors quickly conducted tests. However, the doctor who performed the CT scan looked alarmed.
Osteosarcoma? That's nonsense. This is just arthritis. Ridiculous. How could such a basic misdiagnosis be made?
The emergency room doctor was furious. Is it really that simple to distinguish between the two? I wondered in amazement. No, it's not that straightforward. It's impossible for a layperson to judge. Dr. Charlene must have used that to deceive me.
Anyway, we have a private room available in our hospital, so let's monitor her closely until she recovers.
When Bro said this,
a private room?
I was surprised.
It's okay. It's available now, and will cover the costs.
I had my concerns, but Sarah's life was more important. That night, I set up a cot in the private room to stay with Sarah. Thanks to the treatment, Sarah regained consciousness and was frightened, wanting me to stay with her. I resolved to stay by her side, not knowing what might happen next. Later that night, it was after Sarah had fallen asleep. As I began to drift off, I heard footsteps in the hallway outside. I immediately woke up but pretended to be asleep. Then, I heard the door to the room open. Someone was approaching quietly.
I thought I could finally do something for that person.
It was Dr. Charlene's voice.
If it comes to this.
I heard the sound of rummaging through a bag. Then she took out a small vial and a syringe. I readied myself to act and watched closely. Dr. Charlene opened the vial and drew some liquid into the syringe. Then, as Dr. Charlene tried to grab Sarah's arm,
What are you doing?
I sprang up and lunged at Dr. Charlene, pinning her down. With a startled cry, bottles and syringes scattered across the floor.
Heavy. It's suffocating. Were you awake? I'm not just awake. Get off me, you're too heavy.
My weight was almost 1.5 times that of Dr. Charlene, if not double. Struggling as she was, Dr. Charlene couldn't move at all. Amid our commotion, Sarah woke up and cried out in shock.
What's happening? Why?
I turned to Sarah and said,
Sarah, call the nurse. Got it.
Sarah said as she frantically pressed the call button over and over. Soon, we could hear the sound of footsteps approaching from the nurse's station on that floor. The door opened and the lights came on.
What on earth is going on here?
It was Bro who spoke. Then, we heard Dr. Charlene click her tongue again.
Taylor, well done.
Bro said as he strapped Dr. Charlene's hands and feet with bands.
She can't move now.
Picking up the medicine bottle she had dropped, Bro's face twisted with anger.
What were you planning to do with my niece's life?
Bro's anger was palpable.
Because you were going to take her away from our clinic, I wanted to make things easier for her, to make it less painful somehow. Because of that, I had to act quickly. Act quickly? That means...
The ambiguity of her words made my imagination run wild with fear. Seeing my reaction, Bro spelled it out.
In other words, this person was planning to take Sarah's life, despite being a doctor.
Suddenly, I felt like I couldn't breathe.
What were you? Dr. Charlene, what were you going to do to me?
Sarah cried out, her voice trembling with tears. Then, the door opened again. Nancy. And someone else was behind her.
Oh, so she finally showed up. Finally? I figured if I did this, she would come directly. That's why we moved her to a private room. We didn't want to disturb the other patients.
And then, Nancy gestured for the person behind her to enter.
We hastily investigated, but it didn't take long to get the answer. Right, Roger?
I didn't understand why Roger was there.
What is this, Melville, Nancy? Why call me at this hour? Oh, Roger, it's too late. They figured out everything we did. What? Charlene, why are you here? And why are you in such a state?
It seemed that Roger had just noticed Dr. Charlene, who was now bound and lying on the floor.
Roger? Charlene? You two call each other by first names?
I screamed as Bro held me back. Oh, right. Sarah was listening.
It's okay, Mom.
Sarah shouted.
If we're going to do this, I want to know everything. After all, the reason I'm here, the reason I suffered, the reason I couldn't attend middle school immediately, It's all because of Dad and Dr. Charlene, isn't it?
Sarah, you're very perceptive. Nancy gently stroked Sarah's shoulder and back.
I'm a middle schooler now. I need to understand these things. It's better to know than to be kept in the dark. Please, Mom.
I was confused. And I was furious at my own helplessness. Nancy held up the medicine she had picked up and confronted Dr. Charlene.
You brought the medication, didn't you? You must have known what would happen to this child's body if injected at this concentration,
Nancy said, her hands gloved in latex. Of course, it was for evidence preservation.
Someone's here to see you.
More visitors entered the spacious room. The size of the room was truly a blessing. The visitors flashed their police badges at Roger and Dr. Charlene, declaring firmly,
"We're the police. Charlene, you're under arrest for the crime committed. Roger, you're coming with us for abetting her."
Roger, hearing this, instinctively tried to flee.
"Hold it! You can't just run away."
Bro's large, strong hand gripped Roger's shoulder.
"I've been looking after Taylor ever since our parents died, trying to keep the family happy. I thought I could trust you to do the same, but what have you done to your own child?"
Bro shouted as Nancy brought another person into the room.
"Yes, we were asked to expedite the investigation at top speed. It took some days, but we finally uncovered the truth. This man has been embezzling quite a bit from his company." "Embezzlement?"
I blurted out, and Roger averted his gaze.
"Yes, they're from a detective agency. They were hired to investigate urgently." "But Roger was about to become a manager. He was always busy and rarely came home, not even visiting our child in the hospital."
The detective continued calmly.
"Actually, it was the opposite. He was supposed to become a manager, but the promotion was put on hold once suspicions of embezzlement arose." "That can't be. He never said anything."
I couldn't believe it.
"He wanted the insurance money to cover the embezzled amount." "Insurance money?" "He took out a $200,000 insurance policy on your daughter."
I couldn't immediately grasp what that meant.
"So, Roger, you were planning to cover it with Sarah's life?" "I had no choice. Without it, I would be kicked out of the company." "What are you saying?"
I raised my hand towards Roger impulsively. My large hand slapped his cheek, knocking him to the ground.
"You've really put on weight since the old days. That's why I'm no longer attracted to you." "This has nothing to do with that. Even if I've gained weight, you've always been drawn to the beautiful Dr. Charlene." "Yes, you got fat after having kids."
I was at a loss for words. I wanted to stay beautiful too. But
"I couldn't help it. I got sick when I was pregnant." "Yes, Taylor's kidney got damaged during pregnancy. Since then, she's struggling with weight gain."
Nancy defended me.
"That's beside the point. Dr. Charlene was there to comfort me."
The police sighed upon hearing this.
"That's enough. What's important is that he tried to take his daughter's life, and his wife asked for her help. We'll take them both into custody. I understand your anger, but you don't want to be charged with assault, do you?"
I realized the seriousness.
"We'll try to keep you out of trouble. You have enough to handle with your child." "Yes, but please, answer me. Didn't you love Sarah?"
I asked Roger.
"She was cute at first. But as you started gaining weight, I couldn't help but think that Sarah might end up like you someday. And honestly, I just stopped caring."
What? Dad, is that really how you thought of me? So, you decided I wasn't worth it anymore? Sarah started crying right then and there. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I hugged Sarah tightly. It's because of Mom.
No, it's not Mom's fault. Mom has always done what's best for me. Even a middle schooler can see that. Dad just wants to blame everything on Mom for what he did. I don't even want to call him Dad anymore. He can do whatever he wants.
Yes, that's for the best. Nancy agreed.
And you were the director of the Smith Family Clinic, weren't you? For a healthcare professional to do something like this, even if it was an attempt, you can never return to this industry. You've thrown away your entire career for this man? You wouldn't understand.
Dr. Charlene spat out the words bitterly.
I worked so hard to take over this clinic. But Roger was the only one who saw me as a woman. Do you understand that feeling? Of course not. I'm not you. I put in a lot of effort.
Unlike you. I really tried to approach this person. Bro nodded at Nancy. Then, Dr. Charlene groaned and fainted on the spot. Nancy checked her pulse and condition.
She's okay,
she assured us, and had her taken away by the police. Then, I turned to Roger and unleashed my anger.
I'll have the divorce papers prepared by the lawyer. You don't care about us anymore, do you? If you don't care, then don't ever get involved again. We'll be seeking compensation and child support through the divorce proceedings. I don't ever want to see you again, so pay it all at once.
I never imagined I could say something like this so calmly. It must have been all the pent-up emotions inside me. Roger glared at me resentfully. But I wouldn't back down.
Goodbye forever then.
Those were my final words to Roger. Now, after that, the two of them were arrested and brought to trial. Because it was premeditated and involved an act intended to take a life, they were both sentenced to prison, even though it was an attempt. The Smith Family Clinic had to close due to Dr. Charlene's arrest. The previous director, despite his age, was writing referral letters for the current patients, which was quite a task. I truly apologize for everything. No, the former director has always been good to us. How did things end up like this? I said. Maybe my expectations were too high. The previous director said with a sad voice. I felt bad about receiving the compensation, but the former director made sure it was all paid. It will be hard for the two of you from now on. Since I'm closing the clinic, selling the equipment should bring in some money, he said kindly. Roger was also prosecuted. Since he wasn't the direct perpetrator but an instigator, he complained that a prison sentence was too harsh. Unfortunately, the law considers instigation a serious crime too. He was sentenced to prison as well. It was Roger's idea in the first place, and without him, Dr. Charlene might not have gone down that path. Then, the incident itself, being an attempted insurance murder of my daughter, made it into the local news. Because I was also a victim, it became difficult to continue living in the area. During such a time, Bro and Nancy suggested moving far away.
You know, we've decided to go into rural healthcare for a while. I'm a doctor and Melville is a nurse. It's a perfect fit. We've been thinking about moving far away together for a while, but the timing just never worked out. So, why don't you come with us?
They invited me. Maybe the incident made it hard for them to stay at the hospital. But they didn't mention it, which showed their kindness. So, I decided to take them up on their offer. After a while, we moved to another state. Even though it was rural, it was the kind of place where you could drive for an hour to get to a shopping mall. Basically, the town's clinic had no successor, and there was a period without a doctor. If you drove, you could reach a hospital, but having a local place you could rely on was important. Not everyone can drive, especially the elderly population. So, having a clinic within walking distance was greatly appreciated. Thinking about it, the Smith family clinic, the town's doctor, must have caused trouble for the community because of what Dr. Charlene did. When Bro and his wife settled in the new town's clinic, I was hired as an office worker. At first, they said they couldn't pay much because I lacked experience, but that didn't matter. After a work gap, I was just thankful to be able to do such a job part-time. With the divorce settlement money and child support, I could support my daughter. By the way, Sarah's health returned to normal, and she suddenly grew taller. Apparently, the arthritis was related to growing pains. I couldn't believe someone would exploit such a thing. Nowadays, she's thriving in sports in this sparsely populated area. I hope to live peacefully with Bro and his wife and my daughter as a new family from now on. For my husband Stephen's 60th birthday celebration, our daughter, Lorraine, made a reservation at a high-end French restaurant. I went to the hair salon and wore a dress that Stephen had given me as a gift before. I also had Stephen's suit cleaned and prepared a present for him. It's been years since we've been to such a fancy French restaurant. I felt giddy and excited, forgetting our age for a moment. On the day of the celebration, I arrived early and decided to kill time at a nearby cafe. While I was sipping on a hot lemon tea alone, Lorraine joined me after finishing work. As we chatted, it was 30 minutes before our reservation when Stephen called.
I'm stuck at work and won't make it. I'll cancel the reservation.
Wait a minute, can't you ask to delay it a bit? When will you be done?
Another time, okay? I'm busy, gotta go.
Even though he was busy, this was too sudden. Lorraine had gone through the trouble of making the reservation, and I had been looking forward to it so much. Seeing my disappointment, Lorraine stood up with a smile.
If he canceled it now, there's still time. I've always wanted to try that place. They should be preparing since it's 30 minutes before. Let's go.
You're right. After all, you made the reservation for us. With a change of heart, I looked forward to having a last date with my daughter before she got married. When we arrived at the restaurant, we found out that no cancellation had been made and someone else had already arrived under Stephen's name. Seeing the person's back, I called Stephen.
I'm still at work. I'm busy. I canceled the restaurant.
Is that so? Sorry. By the way, you like that red wine, don't you? Must be nice to drink while working. The man sitting at the table with a view of the city put down his fork and picked up his phone. Seeing him panic, I was exasperated. When he noticed me walking towards him, Stephen's face turned pale. And then he saw Lorraine was with me, too. My name is Hilray, 55 years old. I live with my husband, Stephen, and our daughter, Lorraine. I met Stephen when I was a college student, participating in a volunteer group. He was already a working adult and 5 years older than me, kind and dependable, so I quickly fell for him. We had several chances to go out together, and I confessed my feelings to him. After that, we dated smoothly. Before I graduated from college, he proposed to me at a restaurant on Christmas. And we decided to apply for a marriage license after I graduated. On my graduation day, he gave me a bouquet, saying, "It's the classic gift." It was a memory that our friends teased us about, but now it's a fond memory. After Lorraine was born, Stephen was dedicated and proactive in parenting, being a great father and husband. He never missed a school play, open house, or sports day, and we worked together as a team in raising Lorraine. Thanks to that, Lorraine grew up to be a kind and considerate person. After graduating from college, Lorraine has been working as a respectable company employee. And happily, she has met a wonderful person and is planning to have a wedding soon. With Lorraine getting married and Stephen reaching his 60th birthday this year, I felt a sense of relief.
Why don't you go on a date to celebrate Dad's 60th birthday?
Lorraine had made a reservation at a high-end French restaurant, which usually had a waiting list for months. We planned to have dinner there 3 months later. It might be the first time since the Christmas when Stephen proposed that we've gone to such a fancy French restaurant. I had the dress that Stephen gave me for my birthday cleaned and even made an appointment at the hair salon. I thought I might be overdoing it since it wasn't even my celebration, but I justified it by saying, I need to dress appropriately for such a high-end French restaurant. I also had Stephen's suit and shirt cleaned. You had my suit cleaned? Then I'll wear that green tie. The green tie was a gift from Lorraine, bought with her first paycheck. Even after more than 10 years, he always wore that tie for important occasions, saying it gave him confidence. A few days later, I went to lunch to discuss Lorraine's wedding preparations.
I asked Rosie to give the friend speech. Mom, it's been a while since you've seen Rosie, right? Do you remember her?
Of course, I remember her. But it's been years since we've met. She must be a wonderful grown woman now.
Absolutely, we're both 32 now. She's a fine lady.
We reminisced about Rosie from middle school, remembering how she would say things like, "You're saying that about yourself?" Rosie was Lorraine's best friend, a bit shy and very cute. She often came over to our house during the school days, and we had many sleepovers at each other's homes. Even though she visited less often after becoming an adult, we still went on trips and had meals together, staying as close as ever. She's like another daughter to us. I'm looking forward to seeing her. How is she doing?
Well, she's fine, but...
Lorraine's response was somewhat vague. Upon asking, it seemed Rosie was in a not-so-great relationship.
I hope she meets someone better at my wedding.
Lorraine laughed as she said this, but I could see she was genuinely worried. The mood turned a bit somber. So I shifted the topic back to Lorraine's wedding by showing her photos of several cocktail dresses she tried on recently. The wedding dress remained a secret, saved for the big day. I was sure I'd be in tears both when I put on her veil and when I walked her down the aisle with Stephen. 3 months passed, and today was Stephen's 60th birthday celebration. I had secretly prepared a present for Stephen. It was a DSLR camera he had wanted for a long time. Stephen's dream after retiring was to travel around the country with the camera.
Dad says he wants to date all over America and take lots of photos. You two are really close.
Remembering this, I bought the camera with some excitement. Since I had Lorraine when I was young, we hadn't traveled much. Thinking Stephen remembered all the places I mentioned wanting to visit, I suppressed a grin as I went out to pick up the camera. I got my hair done at the salon, picked up the camera, and planned to meet Stephen in front of the restaurant after his work. I finished my errands earlier than expected and had quite some time until our meeting time. It's been a long time since I had a date at a high-end French restaurant, so I was feeling a bit nervous. To calm myself down, I decided to enter a nearby cafe and ordered a hot lemon tea. As I slowly drank my tea, I received a message from Lorraine.
You're on your date soon, right? Let me know how it goes. I'm heading home now.
Yes, but I arrived early, so I'm killing time at a cafe.
Oh, really? If you're near the restaurant, should I join you for a bit?
Since she happened to be passing by after work, we decided to meet and chat until the reservation time. By the time Lorraine arrived, my tea had cooled down a bit.
Wow, Mom, your hairstyle is cute. And that dress looks great on you.
The hairstyle I requested at the salon, calm and elegant, seemed to be a hit. Lorraine, in her work suit, sat down and ordered an iced coffee.
Our reservation is at 7 p.m., right? We still have some time. I hope Dad doesn't get caught up at work.
He'll be happy to come since you made the reservation, Lorraine. As I checked my smartphone to see when Steven might arrive, I got a call from him.
Sorry, I can't make it because of overtime.
That was all he said. He had known about this for 3 months, and he tells me just 30 minutes before the meeting time? What time will you finish? Even if you're a bit late, the restaurant may adjust the course time. I had many things to say, but arguing wouldn't help. Steven was the guest of honor today. What time will you be done? Should I ask if they can push back the course start time?
I don't know. I'll call to cancel. Another time, okay? Sorry, but I'm busy, so I have to go.
Lorraine had gone through the trouble of making this reservation, and now he had to work overtime on such an important day. There would be a cancellation fee. How would he pay? Deposit? It's already 30 minutes before, and they must be preparing. How can he say another time when it's hard to get reservations? Thinking all these things, I took a sip of my lemon tea, which had gone completely cold. What happened with Dad? First, I had to apologize to Lorraine, who had made the reservation. Explaining the situation, Lorraine looked disappointed for a moment, then suddenly brightened up and finished her coffee. Our reservation is in 30 minutes, and they must be preparing. Let's go to the restaurant. If Dad is calling to cancel, there's still time. But Dad's so busy that he doesn't know when he'll be done, right? We can have dinner and then go home. I've always wanted to try that place. Indeed, it was a restaurant with a months-long wait for a reservation. Canceling at this late hour would be a hassle, even with a cancellation fee. Steven's celebration could be another day. Today could be a date with my daughter before her wedding. Excuse me, we have a 7 p.m. reservation under holder. I believe a cancellation call was made, but we can make it now. The popular restaurant was bustling with people. Let's ask for a table with a view of the night sky, Lorraine whispered from behind me as we waited for our turn. The shop assistant checked her notebook, then asked if we were indeed holder. We have only one reservation under holder for tonight, and someone already arrived under that name. We haven't received any cancellation notice. Could you confirm the contact number used for the reservation? Lorraine gave her number. Yes, the contact number matches. However, 2 people already arrived under the name holder.
What? But my husband said he couldn't come and told me to cancel. My daughter is available now, so I thought we could still make it if there's time. Who could possibly?
Could someone have used our reservation without permission? I was so happy Lorraine made the reservation and might have bragged about it to some people. But who would do such a thing? Lorraine pressed the confused attendant, asking which table the person was at. You confirmed the reservation under holder, right? I have the right to know who used my reservation without permission. Please tell me. The table they pointed to was the one farthest from the entrance, a lovely window-side counter. It was a beautiful spot where you could see the night view side by side. Lorraine and I hid behind a nearby pillar. A man and a woman were seated, and the man was unmistakably Steven, who had called earlier in a cold tone saying he couldn't make it due to overtime. The woman's face was hidden, but she looked much younger than Steven. I couldn't comprehend or didn't want to comprehend the situation. Steven, who lied about working overtime and canceling, was here with a woman at the restaurant my daughter had reserved for his birthday celebration. I was sad, but the fact that Steven would do such a thing at a restaurant my daughter had thoughtfully reserved made me furious. Most painfully, Lorraine realized that the man sitting next to her was Steven. Hoping it was a mistake, I called him. "Hey, are you still working overtime?"
"What? I'm still at the office. I told you, I don't know when I'll finish, I'm busy. I have to go."
When I called Steven, the man at the counter put down his fork and answered his phone. "Sorry to bother you while you're busy. By the way, Steven, you do love that red wine. Must be nice to drink on the job." Steven quickly pulled the phone away from his ear and looked around. As he frantically scanned the room, I walked toward him, thinking, if he's this panicked, he shouldn't be doing this. Lorraine followed me, and when Steven saw us, his face turned pale. The woman had her head down, her face hidden. Steven stood up, trying to shield the woman from view. "Working in a place like this? Quite the job. Didn't you say you were at the office? When did your office become this fancy? And who is this woman? What are you doing here? When did your office become this fancy? And who is this woman? What are you doing here?"
"Hilray, why are you here?" I just finished work. I was taking a break. I wanted to thank her for helping with my overtime."
"You said you were at the office on the phone, just 10 minutes ago. You said you couldn't come because of overtime. Poor lies are unbecoming. Tell the truth." As Steven struggled to respond, Lorraine, who had been silent behind me, moved closer to the woman.
"Rosie."
"Rosie? Lorraine's friend Rosie?" The woman, called Rosie, slowly lifted her head. With makeup on and after years of not seeing her, I barely recognized her as Lorraine's childhood friend who often visited our home.
"We just happened to meet and decided to grab dinner."
Rosie awkwardly glanced around, clearly lying.
"Enough of that. You told me you were having an affair with a married 60-year-old. I told you to stop countless times." "Rosie, what's going on?" "You told me you were dating a 60-year-old. That he had a wife and daughter but would divorce and marry you once his daughter got married. That was about our family?"
I knew she was seeing someone bad, but an affair? And telling her best friend, who was also her lover's daughter, about it. I couldn't fathom Steven hitting on his daughter's friend or Rosie dating her friend's father. As Lorraine questioned Rosie, she finally began to speak.
"I had a crush on Mr. Steven since I was in high school. He was more mature and kinder than the boys in my class. I often ran into him when I left Lorraine's house, inviting him out on dates. He gave me his contact info at my high school graduation."
I had no idea it started that long ago. I could understand a young girl's crush on an older man, but Steven giving her his number was unforgivable.
"We had a few meals together in college, and by the time I graduated, Steven asked me to date him. We'd been seeing each other for over 10 years.
Steven asked her out? By the time she graduated was around the same time he proposed to me. It felt like all our memories had been tainted.
Lorraine is getting married, so it's time, right? I've been a good husband and father for many years. It's time for us to start our second lives."
Start a second life? That was his plan all along. We had worked hard as a couple raising our daughter, with little time just for us. That's why I was looking forward to traveling together. I even bought a camera for this, but it was for his trips with his mistress. I had so much to say, but no words came out. As tears threatened to fall, a senior shop assistant approached.
"Please, you're disturbing the other guests."
Only then did I remember we were in a restaurant.
"We'll talk later. Lorraine and I are leaving. Steven, don't come home tonight."
As Lorraine pulled me away, I caught a glimpse of Rosie looking smug. Later, we arranged a meeting with Steven, Rosie, and her parents.
I'm truly, truly sorry.
When the door opened, Rosie's parents bowed deeply, almost touching the ground. Nice to see you again.
Our daughter has done a terrible thing. We are so sorry.
In the living room, facing me were Rosie and her parents, with Stephen sitting between us.
We've been friends with Lorraine for so long, and now we've betrayed you. We're deeply sorry. We had no idea she felt this way since school. We are also responsible.
They bowed again. Meanwhile, Stephen and Rosie looked emotionless, as if they did nothing wrong. It's not just Rosie's fault. Stephen is equally to blame for reciprocating her feelings. You don't need to bow anymore. Why are you apologizing? We didn't do anything wrong.
Rosie!
Stephen was clearly in the wrong, dating a high school student and proposing a relationship while being married. I couldn't say Rosie wasn't at fault, but Stephen should have ended it when she was still a high school student. I wanted to think she was a victim in a way, but at 32, she should know better.
Because I'm younger and prettier. Stephen only sees you as an old woman. He loves me more, can't you see? Rosie! Stop it!
Rosie's mother banged on the table, raising her voice. If I'm an old woman, Stephen, who is 5 years older, must look even older. Love is blind.
Stephen has loved me since I was a high school student. He gave me presents for Christmas and birthdays, always telling me how cute I was. That's right. Compared to high school Rosie, you're just an old woman. You're not as cute as you used to be. I won't spend my life with a housekeeper like you. You should be grateful I've supported a housekeeper I don't even love.
The man I admired and fell in love with turned out to be this pathetic? Dating his daughter's friend, taking her affection seriously, and going out on dates. Wearing the suit I had cleaned and the tie our daughter gave him for these dates. I always thought he was a good father, someone I looked up to, and tried to stay attractive for him.
This is pointless. Lorraine!
I called toward the door connected to the bathroom, and Lorraine came out holding a voice recorder.
Everything said here has been recorded. We will consult a lawyer and file for compensation for adultery.
Stephen and Rosie turned pale at the mention of compensation for adultery.
A lawyer? We've already consulted a lawyer, a friend of Lorraine's husband. We have the right to claim compensation for the years of infidelity.
Hearing this, Rosie turned even paler and approached Lorraine.
Hey, we're best friends, right? We've been close since junior high school for almost 20 years. And if I marry Stephen, I'll be Lorraine's mother. Asking me for divorce compensation is ridiculous.
Lorraine, on the verge of tears but holding them back, glared at Rosie. Rosie, confused by her gaze, kept muttering.
We're best friends, right? Yes, we've been best friends for nearly 20 years. Best friends. But how many of those years did you betray me and Mom? Rosie, you're the one in the wrong. Rosie's eyes darted around, then she moved closer to Stephen as if seeking protection from Lorraine, who kept advancing.
Stephen, shielding Rosie, glared at Lorraine and yelled at me.
A mere housekeeper asking for divorce compensation is absurd. Rosie will be Lorraine's mother. And if you want to demand divorce compensation, pay back all the money I've spent on you. Rosie will be Lorraine's mother? Don't be ridiculous. I am the only mother of Lorraine. Stephen, who cheated on me while wearing the tie Lorraine gave him, is no longer her father. This child is mine alone. No matter how it started, you two have been in an affair for years. You're the ones responsible for this divorce. You both will pay the divorce compensation. This child is mine alone. No matter how it started, you two have been in an affair for years. You're the ones responsible for this divorce. You both will pay the divorce compensation.
Seeing no way to win, Stephen's face turned bright red. Rosie, now beyond pale, looked at her parents, probably hoping they would help. But they wouldn't even look at her.
If you continue this relationship, you're no longer our daughter. Pay the divorce compensation yourself and get married or do whatever you want. Never come back to this house.
Rosie, in a state of shock, couldn't believe her parents were abandoning her. Despite everything, she stayed by Stephen's side, making it clear they had no intention of ending their relationship. I had no intention of staying married to such a man, nor did I want Stephen acting like a father to Lorraine or pretending to be a friend.
We'll handle the details through our lawyers, I said, as Rosie's parents dragged Stephen and Rosie out of the house.
Through our lawyer, we demanded divorce compensation, but both refused, claiming they had done nothing wrong. When the case went to court, neither showed up on the day, and we were awarded the full amount of compensation. After the court contacted them, Stephen and Rosie bombarded me and Lorraine with calls and emails, which we ignored. We had no intention of accepting any apologies or reduced payments. They missed the court date, and I hadn't forgotten all the things they said during the confrontation. Since we requested an amount slightly higher than the average, their combined savings were completely depleted after paying in full. Rosie and Stephen were kicked out by their respective parents and ended up living in a small apartment with no one to turn to. Stephen's parents, being elderly, were shocked when he introduced Rosie, a girl young enough to be their granddaughter, as his new wife. Lorraine's wedding went on as planned. The speech by her friend was cancelled. Instead, the groom's friends stepped in with a side attraction that brought great excitement, making it a wonderful reception. I even got to walk her down the aisle, which felt like a small bonus. "Mom, if you wouldn't mind, could you live with us? We're expecting a baby, and it would be reassuring to have you with us, if you don't mind." While it was a lovely offer, I didn't want to intrude on the newlyweds. So I used a portion of the substantial divorce compensation to remodel our home into a two-family house. Next spring, Lorraine will become a mother. I look forward to meeting my adorable grandchild and supporting their family. The crowded airport entrance felt unbearable due to the summer humidity.
It's just awful. Looks like the rain isn't going to stop anytime soon. This is the worst.
My sister-in-law, Terry, was clearly upset by this unfortunate situation. We were stranded on our way back from a business trip Terry had organized for her important clients, thanks to a hurricane causing flight delays.
You know, Valerie, if you're a professional tour director, shouldn't you plan trips considering the weather?
I was at a loss for words. Terry was the one who decided on the travel dates and destinations. All I did was research the routes and list information about the sites. Of course, I knew there was a chance of a hurricane today. I had even mentioned it to Terry beforehand, but she insisted her clients couldn't change their schedules. After a while, a car pulled up in front of us. My husband, Lex, came over with a small umbrella. "Sorry for the wait. Terry, you have work tomorrow, right? You should get home and rest. Valerie, you don't have anything urgent, right? It's only a 3-hour walk from here, good for your health too."
That sounds good. Health comes first, Valerie.
Lex and Terry quickly got into the car to avoid getting soaked. As I watched them, Lex rolled down the driver's window and yelled,
"Hey! What are you doing? Hurry up! I was joking about walking."
"No, it's fine." I opened the umbrella Lex brought and pointed to a nearby high-rise condo. It was a new, prominent building in the area. Terry and Lex looked at me puzzled from inside the car.
It won't take 3 hours, just 3 minutes on foot. I moved into this high-rise condo recently.
Terry and Lex half laughed at my words. Then, they quickly became frantic and started running after me. My name is Valerie, 44 years old. I'm a working wife and a tour director. I used to work for a major travel company but quit 10 years ago when I got married. Now that things have settled, I plan and promote tours on my own. It's not uncommon for major travel companies to outsource tour directors these days, so my job scope has expanded. I specialize in lesser-known, slightly niche destinations. The places I plan tours to often require multiple transfers on trains and buses or trekking through rugged terrain. At first, many people are hesitant about my tours, but in the end, they usually leave satisfied. Of course, I also handle tours of famous landmarks and have always been popular with older clients, likely because of my gentle demeanor. I had always been close to my grandmother, so I found it easy and enjoyable to talk with older people and listen to their stories. Traveling together to various landmarks created a sense of unity, and though our time was short, we formed close bonds. I felt a sense of fulfillment and pride in my work as a tour director. One day, I was invited to Lex's parents' house. They had just finished remodeling their home, and this was their housewarming party. Lex and I bought a cake for the occasion and headed to their house. This area has really changed a lot, Lex said, narrowing his eyes as he looked around. We got married 10 years ago. And back then, this area was just a barren, desolate lot. It had once been a forest, bought by a real estate company that planned to build condos, but the local residents opposed it. As a result, the empty lot remained for years until recently, when new houses started being built.
Well, it's good that the area is becoming more lively, but I wonder if the new residents understand the hardships of living in the countryside. But with a big grocery store nearby, this place might not stay so rural. If more young people move in and the area becomes bustling, it could turn out to be a great place.
Yeah, and if the area gets busier, Terry's shop will thrive, which is a good thing. I swallowed my response to Lex's words. Lex's sister, my sister-in-law Terry, runs an apparel shop. She used to have a small store in a prime city location but had to return to the countryside due to rent and other issues. We were worried about her opening an apparel shop in such a rural area, but with the recent population growth, her shop has been booming. More homes and commercial facilities are being built, and Terry proudly proclaimed that her shop was secure.
Hello,
we said as we arrived at Lex's parents' house. The remodeled house looked beautiful, and Lex's parents were happily explaining all the improvements and insulation details. I listened earnestly, because I genuinely enjoyed hearing about it. Stories about how the house had improved and what issues they faced were fascinating to me. Come on, Mom, Dad. Valerie isn't interested in that stuff, Terry said, munching on snacks and drinking beer in the middle of the day. I smiled slightly and replied,
No, it's interesting.
But Terry snorted and pointed at me. Are you still working as a tour director, Valerie?
Yes, I regularly get work from older people who are unsure about planning trips.
So, you're basically just catering to old folks? Don't use our parents as practice subjects. I exchanged glances with my parents-in-law and felt my shoulders slump slightly. Terry seemed to dislike me. More accurately, she looked down on me. She had always flaunted her talent for running her own store from a young age and had an occasionally condescending attitude that bothered me. Being my sister-in-law, I couldn't talk back. I had to admit, though, that her business acumen was genuinely impressive. Well, it's a pretty dull job, isn't it?
Planning tours for old folks? It lacks any glamour, Terry said.
Terry, are you drunk?
Lex asked. I'm not drunk. I sell clothes that I personally select from overseas in my own store. In other words, I'm selling my own sense of style. Then Valerie is doing the same thing. She's selling her sense of travel plans that she chooses.
Lex retorted. Terry let out an exaggerated sigh. I nudged Lex, trying to signal that I didn't want to engage further with Terry, but he didn't understand and tilted his head in confusion.
But Valerie plans trips to rural areas, right? Her sense of style must be quite interesting,
Terry said with a hint of sarcasm. Her words about my interesting sense of style made my smile freeze. There was always a slight sting in her remarks. If it was just a matter of being disliked, I could understand. But Terry often called me out of the blue on her days off.
Valerie? I need a favor. One of my important clients wants a guided tour of some landmarks. Can you come? Is this a job request? Stop joking and come quickly. I'm keeping people waiting.
After she abruptly hung up, I consulted Lex. It was supposed to be a relaxing Sunday. Lex, tired from work, didn't want to get involved in my issues with his sister, so he ignored my words. Left with no choice, I drove to where Terry had summoned me. I ended up chauffeuring an elderly couple I had never met before, giving them a free tour of various landmarks. Even though it wasn't a job, I felt it would be rude to be careless, so I treated them with the same care as my paying clients. Terry, enjoying the arrangement, began calling me every weekend to play host to her clients. Feeling this was unreasonable, I confronted Lex. Initially sympathetic, he grew increasingly irritated.
What's the big deal? You hate doing favors for Terry that much? I'm a tour director by profession. If she's going to rely on my skills every week, she should at least hire me properly. Look, you're helping Terry's important clients, and she appreciates it. Isn't that enough?
Our disagreements deepened over time. I believed that regardless of the relationship, work deserved compensation. Lex insisted that gratitude was enough compensation. I argued that monetary compensation was the basic principle of labor.
You're so materialistic. Happiness isn't about money. You can't buy happiness with money.
I swallowed my retort. That wasn't the point I was trying to make. One day, I was leaning back in the back seat of a small bus, slowly sipping water under the blazing sun. The bus engine was off, making the interior stiflingly hot, but I didn't care. I gazed out at the high-rise condominiums. It was a stark contrast to the peaceful scenery I was used to, with skyscrapers lining the bustling urban landscape. I was invited by Terry to join her on a trip. And as expected, a large number of her regular customers gathered, treating me as the tour director. Terry had arranged for a small bus, but I was made to act as the guide, carry luggage, and handle various other tasks, leaving me exhausted. After being thoroughly used up, the group finally disbanded in the evening. Terry innocently invited me for dinner, saying, "At least let me treat you to dinner." After having a meal at a nearby restaurant, we stepped outside to head home and noticed the ominous clouds. We had heard on the news that a typhoon was approaching, but it seemed to have made landfall earlier than expected. An announcement echoed through the airport, informing us of flight delays due to the typhoon. Terry and I exchanged worried glances. We boarded our plane and arrived at the nearest airport. It started to rain, and a long line began forming at the taxi stand. Watching the increasingly heavy rain from the airport entrance, the wind howled and dark clouds covered the sky. Next to me, Terry was holding her smartphone to her ear, glaring at the sky with a sour expression.
Lex? This is such a mess. Yes, it's pouring. It didn't rain during the trip, thank goodness, but now the taxi stand is crowded and we can't get home. Can you pick us up?
I glanced around. The airport cafe was full, and the entrance area was unpleasantly humid due to the summer weather. Terry was visibly irritated by the unfortunate situation, pouting her lips.
It's terrible, isn't it? The rain doesn't look like it will stop anytime soon. This is the worst.
Terry ran her hand through her hair and dropped her bag on the floor. The rain blowing in had created puddles, soaking her shoes and adding to her frustration.
Valerie, as a professional tour director, shouldn't you plan trips while considering the weather on the day of travel?
I was at a loss for words. It was Terry who had set the dates and chosen the tourist spots. I had only researched the routes and listed information about the attractions. Of course, I knew there was a chance of a typhoon today. I had informed Terry about it in advance, but she had insisted that her clients' schedules couldn't be changed. After a while, a car stopped in front of us. Lex approached with a small umbrella. Sorry for the wait. Terry, you have work tomorrow, right? You should get home and rest. Valerie, you don't have any urgent work, right? You can walk home from here in about 3 hours. It's good for your health.
That might be a good idea.
Health first, Valerie. Lex and Terry hurriedly got into the car, avoiding the rain. As I watched them absent-mindedly, Lex rolled down the driver's side window and yelled,
Hey! What are you doing? Hurry up! I was joking about walking home.
What?
No, it's fine.
I opened the umbrella Lex had brought and pointed at a high-rise condominium a short distance away. It was a newly built, prominent symbol tower in the area. Lex and Terry looked at me with puzzled expressions from inside the car.
It won't take 3 hours. It's only a 3-minute walk.
Come on, enough with the silly jokes. Just get in the car.
There's luggage in the back seat, but you can push it aside and get in.
No, really, it's fine.
I moved into that high-rise condominium.
Terry and Lex laughed half-heartedly at my words. Ignoring them, I ran through the heavy rain towards the condominium. I unlocked the entrance and placed my luggage on a sofa near the front desk, lightly wiping myself down. The friendly concierge handed me a clean towel, and I thanked him. As I unlocked the elevator to head to my floor, I heard Terry shouting behind me.
Hey, hey, hey! What's going on here?
Terry was frantically yelling in front of the auto-locked door, banging on it and randomly pressing the keypad. The concierge noticed Terry's erratic behavior and looked at her suspiciously.
Concierge? Can you open this door, please?
I'm sorry, but what is your business here?
I'm Valerie's sister. Valerie! Open up! Do you live here? Tell me.
Waiting for the elevator, I began to feel a bit scared. Terry looked at me with a mix of disbelief and envy. Shortly after, Lex arrived at the entrance, drenched from the rain. He stared at me entering the high-rise condominium with a look of utter disbelief. As I got into the elevator, my smartphone started ringing from inside my bag. The caller was Terry. Ignoring it, I saw Lex's name appear next. They called almost alternately, followed by a stream of messages. My home was on a middle floor of the high-rise condominium. The apartment was still mostly unfurnished, with no curtains on the windows. Only the kitchen light bulb was installed, so I relied on its dim glow as I changed clothes in the semi-darkness. Without curtains, I could clearly see the dazzling night view. I imagined the kind of words that only successful people might say, looking at such a view. Among the regular clients for whom I served as a tour guide, there were quite a few wealthy individuals. I didn't know the details, but one of them had apparently made a fortune in real estate. He was particularly fond of my meticulous guiding and began a personal association with me. Through this relationship, I found myself mingling with people who could be called celebrities. They often said, almost in unison, that they had been busy with work when they were young and now wanted to enjoy traveling in their retirement. Word of mouth continued to bring in customers, and I was inundated with high-paying tour guide requests. The earnings were substantial, allowing me to stretch my finances a bit and move into a high-rise condominium. I stared at my smartphone for a while. Lex was calling persistently, so I reluctantly decided to answer. His voice on the other end was oddly gentle and coaxing. "Valerie? Why are you living in such a luxurious condominium? Where did you get the money? Have you forgotten something?" I began explaining in a polite tone, much like I did when working as a tour director. The reason I had moved into a high-rise condominium was simple. Lex and I were already divorced. A few months ago, Lex had handed me divorce papers, demanding that I sign them right in front of him. I spent days wondering how our relationship had deteriorated to this point. There was no significant issue between us, just small cracks that grew into a large chasm. Thinking back, it was Terry's constant exploitation of me to accompany her clients on their trips that dissatisfied me. Lex, never defending me and always siding with Terry, widened the rift between us. I always said I was dissatisfied with just words of gratitude as compensation for my work.
But if you can earn enough to live in such a high-rise condominium, you don't need money, right? Terry is family. Words of gratitude should be enough. What's the problem?
I thought of responding but closed my mouth. I was already fed up. Despite this, I hadn't submitted the divorce papers for a long time, knowing that Lex used them out of momentary anger or as a threat. I understood that he didn't really want a divorce. But now, things were different. I no longer cared about the responsibilities of marriage, societal appearances, or vanity. I was willing to trouble my company, siblings, parents, and anyone else just to be free from Lex. I hated the version of myself that kept my emotions bottled up, constantly enduring and wavering. The divorce was finalized just recently. I had planned to tell Lex about the finalized divorce and that I would be leaving soon, but then Terry dragged me on a trip. "Just let me in. We need to talk." "Terry, too," Lex pleaded. Why should Terry be involved in a matter between me and my husband? I took the documents from the bookshelf, placed them in a clear file, and left the apartment. When I returned to the entrance, Terry was being held back by a security guard, trying to shake free. But upon seeing me, she suddenly became meek and looked up at me with wide eyes.
"Valerie, just let me see your place for a moment. It's amazing. How much did it cost?" "Hey, Valerie. How dare you file the divorce papers without telling me?" "Sure, I signed them, but really, if you were serious about submitting them, you'd at least consult me first," Lex ranted. Both of them were speaking selfishly, saying whatever they wanted. As far as I was concerned, I had already given up on Lex, and Terry was less than a stranger to me. I took a deep breath and then spoke clearly to settle any lingering issues. "Listen. The divorce with Lex is already finalized. Lex, Terry, we are no longer connected. This is disturbing the other residents, so please leave." Wait. You can't just end it like that. We need to talk about the division of assets, given that you're living in such a high-end condominium," Lex countered.
I had anticipated this turn of events. I handed the clear file I had prepared to Lex. Inside were records I had secretly kept of the mental anguish caused by Lex and Terry, including footage from hidden cameras capturing their harassment at home. A lawyer had supervised the preparation of these documents, which proved that our marriage had significant issues and that the divorce was justified. It also mentioned that I could claim compensation for defamation in a divorce court. Lex stared at the documents in a daze as I spoke calmly.
Those documents. They're just to show that a lawyer is on my side. I'm not actually going to claim compensation in a divorce court.
But if I complain about the division of assets? I looked him in the eye and nodded slightly. Lex leaned against the entrance wall and sighed. The rain and wind were gradually calming down, but clouds still hung low in the night sky. Lex muttered, in a tiny voice. It was so quiet that it sounded to me like he regretted not siding with me instead of Terry.
Lex, as a husband, you couldn't control Valerie properly. You were always taking Valerie's guide fees from me,
Terry accused.
What?
I exclaimed involuntarily. Apparently, whenever I accompanied Terry as a tour guide, a few $100s were handed over to Lex. In other words, Lex had been secretly taking money while letting me be used by Terry. I had been exploited all along. Suddenly, something snapped inside me. It wasn't anger anymore, it felt like a sense of liberation. Fine, whatever.
Divorce is none of my business,
Terry said dismissively.
Terry, there's something I wanted to talk to you about,
I said, trying to keep my tone calm. Terry looked puzzled. She had often visited our house and once left behind a notebook that looked like a ledger. I hadn't understood the numbers written in it. But during my time as her tour guide, I had heard some strange rumors.
I happened to meet a lady wearing a brand I know, and we started chatting. We got to talking about prices, and something felt off.
I explained. The price she paid at Terry's select shop seemed exorbitantly high. Of course, as a private business, Terry was free to set her prices. But having been to her shop several times, I knew it didn't stock such high-end items.
I thought maybe there was a mistake in pricing or misreported sales, which could be a serious issue.
I continued. What do you mean? Terry asked, her voice rising.
I reported it to the police. I told them about the hidden ledger you left at my house and the suspected tax evasion.
At that, Terry lunged at me with a terrifying expression I had never seen before. She grabbed my clothes, trying to push me down, but the security guard quickly pulled her away. She continued to scream insults at me while struggling violently. Within minutes, the police arrived, having already been notified by the condominium security about the disturbance. The scene became chaotic. Terry thrashed and shouted at the officers and security guards, and Lex, trying to intervene, ended up getting slightly injured. In the end, both Terry and Lex were taken away by the police, leaving the entrance quiet once more. I apologized profusely to the concierge before returning to my apartment. I sat in the kitchen, staring at the soft glow of the light bulb. The next day, I focused on preparing for my new life. Terry was detained by the police under suspicion of tax evasion due to the hidden ledger. Lex was released shortly after but immediately called me, begging,
Please, cancel the divorce.
I ignored him. My feelings for Lex were completely gone. And nothing he said could change that. As a result of the investigation, it was found that Terry had been falsifying her sales records, leading to back taxes. The financial hit and loss of trust from the police involvement caused her shop to lose customers rapidly, and it closed within a few months. The additional taxes were substantial, plunging Terry into debt and destroying her reputation as a competent businesswoman. Life is frightening because it can suddenly take a turn for the worse like this. Lex, on the other hand, spread rumors at his workplace that I had divorced him as soon as I started earning enough to afford the high-rise condo. He said I was ungrateful, but Lex, who always complained, eventually became disliked and lost his standing at the company. Terry even stormed into Lex's company unannounced. She claimed that Lex couldn't properly discipline me, which is why my store went bankrupt. She rampaged through the office, making outrageous accusations. Lex eventually resigned to escape Terry, who came to the office every day begging for money. Now, he drifts from place to place, working odd jobs and living in poverty. Terry's resentment continues as she goes from one relative's house to another, gathering information in her relentless search for Lex. She is truly a terrifying person. Since then, I've turned my condominium into an office and officially started my business as a tour director. Originally, it wasn't fitting for me to live in such a luxurious condominium on my income alone. From the beginning, I planned to use the condominium as both my residence and office, targeting wealthy clients. The office's location needed to have a certain prestige. An elderly couple, who came to my office, is now chatting in the living room. We are about to discuss new travel plans with them. It's their first overseas trip. I will accompany them and guide them through various landmarks. This is my job. It's the best job, where I feel I shine the most, and I will continue to take pride in it and work hard. Hey, Mom. The hospital room door opened suddenly. Who could it be? I turned around and instantly regretted it. There was Dad. Pretending to be concerned about his wife, he was breathing heavily.
Sorry I'm late. It's fine. You were busy with work, right?
I didn't want to hear those lies. Putting himself on a pedestal, my anger and rejection toward that man surged. I wanted to talk to Mom a little more. But I couldn't stand being in the same room with him. Mom, I'll come back. I said that and turned my back on Mom, who seemed like she wanted to say something, and headed for the door. Even his hurried gesture to let me pass irritated me.
Hey, Erica. Thanks.
Thanks for what? It wasn't worth responding to, so I tried to leave the room. But then,
Mom looks better, doesn't she?
those words hit my last nerve. I turned back, furious, forgetting I was in a hospital.
How does she look better? She's an alcoholic who can't even grasp reality anymore. Whose fault is it that she had to push herself to this point? You have no idea how much we have suffered. Stop pretending to be a caring husband.
Erica, no, it's not like that.
There she goes, defending him again. I wish she would get angry like me, just this once. Dad, probably because he was guilty, said nothing. That silence made me even angrier, and I stormed out of the room. My name is Erica. After graduating from college, I moved to Boston and started my first job. This is my third year as a working adult. My hometown is far away, and with the busyness of my new life, plus working at a well-paying but toxic company, I hadn't been able to visit home often. No, it wasn't just the environment. The biggest reason was that I didn't want to see my terrible dad, Lyle. Dad, or rather that man, was a textbook example of a deadbeat. He neglected our family and spent his nights drinking somewhere. He never attended any of my school events, always using work as an excuse. And to top it off, he even had debts from who knows where, causing Mom more pain. He probably ignored the hospital's call earlier. Or if he did answer, he likely used work as an excuse to avoid coming. Otherwise, there's no way the hospital would have contacted a daughter living far away directly. He's truly the worst kind of man.
Are you out of your mind?
The first words from my boss after I returned to the office and explained my situation while requesting paid leave.
Erica, the company policy clearly states that paid leave must be requested at least a month in advance.
But this time it's an emergency. My parent is in the hospital.
Just leave it to your father. Your father is still alive, right? Is it necessary for you, living far away, to go?
My boss yelled, spitting as he spoke. My colleagues' reactions varied. Some looked at me with sympathy, while others seemed indifferent, wanting to avoid the fallout. Normally, I would back down. No, I wouldn't even bring it up in the first place. But this time was different. Despite being intimidated by my boss's anger, I desperately pressed on.
But the hospital contacted me directly. There's a chance my dad can't come because he's busy.
Are you saying you're free? If you're free, think of ways to improve work efficiency and sales.
The conversation was over, or so my boss implied, returning his gaze to the computer. I couldn't believe it. Prioritizing the company's survival over a person's, my parents', emergency. I knew this was a toxic workplace before joining, but endured it for the salary. But I had reached my limit. Feeling it was disgraceful, I stomped back to my desk. My colleagues looked concerned or puzzled, but I didn't care. Inside my favorite bag was a clear file. Tragically, I had anticipated this day might come, though I hoped it wouldn't, and pulled out the partially written resignation letter. I also displayed the company policies section on resignations on my smartphone. Calculating the dates based on the policy and my remaining paid leave, I filled in the previously blank resignation date and submission date. I read it several times to ensure there were no errors or contradictions. Satisfied. I nodded, put it in an envelope, and stomped back to my boss. He looked up, puzzled, as I slapped the resignation letter on his desk.
I apologize, but if I can't take time off for a family emergency, I will resign. The official resignation date and details are written here. I'll be using my remaining paid leave from tomorrow until the resignation date.
How selfish.
My boss's face turned red with anger. But it didn't matter to me.
I understand it's sudden, but I'm not leaving today or tomorrow. The resignation date complies with company policy. So it's not selfish.
The office atmosphere turned tense. My colleagues started murmuring, but I didn't care. My boss said nothing. No, maybe he couldn't speak out of anger, but in this case, he was in the wrong. But that didn't matter to me. In fact, I was the one who had the right to be angry.
I'll send a handover document regarding the work I was in charge of after my mom's hospital matter is settled. Thank you for the short time I was here.
I offered my thanks in words, made an apology I didn't want to make, and left the office, grabbing my belongings, amidst my boss's shouts and the varied gazes of my colleagues. Outside, I saw a taxi approaching from a distance and raised my hand to hail it. Luckily, it stopped immediately, probably because it was on its way to the stand to look for passengers.
Please, take me to the station right away.
As soon as I got in, I directed the driver to the airport near where the planes were taking off. Sensing something from my demeanor, the driver said nothing and just drove. On the way, I hurriedly opened my smartphone and booked a flight. Fortunately, there was a seat available on a flight from the indicated airport to my hometown's airport, so I booked it right away. Originally, I planned to return home and pack before leaving. However, given the state of my mind after what happened at the office, I knew I would likely collapse in tears and be unable to move if I returned home. Hence, my return home was almost unplanned. As it was still daylight, the roads weren't too crowded, and we quickly arrived at the airport. I didn't have enough cash, but fortunately, I could use my credit card to pay. I thanked the driver and headed to the boarding gate. Thanks to everything being digital, the flight I had booked was ticketless, linked to my smartphone. Without the hassle of any procedures at the counter, I passed through the gate and bought some food at the airport. Honestly, I wasn't hungry, but I figured it was better to eat when I could. However, even after settling down on the plane, I couldn't eat. Mom always suffered because of Dad, no, that man. She probably thought she was hiding it, but even as a child, I could see her struggles clearly. I had watched her endure since my childhood. So, to at least repay her, I gave up on my dreams and joined that high-paying company, knowing it was a toxic workplace. It was all for Mom. And yet, if I can't be there when something happens to Mom, money means nothing. The words slipped out before I knew it. Luckily, everyone around me was either sleeping or listening to music, so no one noticed my words. Perhaps because of that, one tear, then another, fell from my eyes. I knew I shouldn't cry in a public place. But despite understanding that, I couldn't stop crying until we reached my destination airport. My anger towards the company was overshadowed by anxiety about Mom, and I returned to my familiar hometown without feeling even a hint of hunger. The hospital that had informed me about Mom was a well-known general hospital in the area. Therefore, I didn't hesitate and caught another taxi in front of the airport to head to the hospital. After a few minutes of the taxi ride, we arrived safely, and I used my credit card again to pay the fare. It was a famous hospital, but I had never used it. I headed to the reception and told them my mom's name and the reason the doctor had called me. At that moment, I realized I had forgotten to note down which ward and which doctor had called due to my agitated state. I worried it might take time to figure out, but my concerns were unfounded. Whether it had been communicated beforehand or could be somewhat inferred from experience, the receptionist found the information in a few minutes. I hung the provided name card holder around my neck, presumably to identify me as a general visitor who had found their way in, and boarded the indicated elevator. I got off on the relevant floor and, following the guide map, somehow managed to find the small room I had been directed to. A few minutes later, a kindly-looking elderly doctor entered the room, looking apologetic. He began by apologizing for the sudden call and then explained Mom's current condition. She had terminal stomach cancer. Moreover, the cancer had already metastasized to several bones, and while the average life expectancy for similar patients is about a month, it could be shorter due to her age and physical condition. I couldn't grasp it immediately. It felt like watching a scene from a TV drama, absent-mindedly, in the living room. But this was reality, something that had happened to Mom and me. While trying to soothe my mind, which wanted to reject reality, I listened to the doctor's words. He asked me to be available for immediate contact and to come as soon as possible, given that anything could happen at any moment. I nodded to each request. There were many procedures to follow due to the necessity of hospitalization. After the male doctor conveyed Mom's condition, a nurse entered the room with a stack of documents. These included her basic information such as her address, any allergies, her medical history, consents for various potential procedures, and applications for rental items. To the nurse's formal apology for the numerous documents, I gave a formal denial, and began filling out the forms while thinking hard. It surely took several minutes to complete everything. The nurse took the documents from me, checked them, and nodded once.
Yes, there doesn't seem to be any issue. Well done. Would you like to see your mother now?
Yes. I nodded reflexively. I wanted to see her, no matter what condition she was in. I was guided to a private room with that thought in mind. Mom was there. She looked much more emaciated than I remembered, so fragile that it seemed she might soon be nothing but skin and bones. In such a state, she was sitting up in bed, looking at me with a troubled smile. Tears welled up in my eyes. Even at a time like this, she didn't have to smile as she used to. Mom.
Welcome, Erica. I'm sorry. Is work okay?
I had forgotten that I was still in my business suit, having come straight from work. But there was nothing I could do about it now. I nodded, indicating that it was okay. Yes, it's fine. I explained the situation and got some time off. My heart ached. But if I told her the truth, Mom would worry and it would add to her stress. So I had no choice but to lie. Whether she noticed the lie or pretended not to. Mom smiled gently and said,
I see.
That smile tightened my heart even more. Mom. Without any warning, the hospital room door swung open. Who could it be? I turned around and immediately regretted it. There was Dad. Pretending to be concerned about his wife, breathing heavily.
Sorry I'm late. It's okay. You must have been busy with work, right?
Words filled with lies that I didn't want to hear. The anger and rejection towards him welled up within me. I wanted to talk with Mom a bit more. But I couldn't stand being in the same room as him. Mom, I'll come back later. I said just that, turned my back on Mom, who looked like she wanted to say something, and headed towards the door. Even seeing him hurriedly step aside annoyed me.
By the way, Erica, thank you.
Thank you for what? I didn't even bother to respond and was about to leave the room. But then,
Mom looks better, doesn't she?
Those words thrown at my back touched a nerve. I spun around, my entire body burning with anger, forgetting I was in a hospital, and raised my voice.
How does she look better to you? Have you become so deluded by alcohol that you can't see reality? Who do you think made her push herself to this point? Do you have any idea how much Mom and I have struggled? Don't pretend to be a concerned husband now.
Erica, no, it's not like that.
Ah, there she goes, defending him again. At least now, I wanted her to unleash her anger like I was doing. Dad said nothing, probably because I hit a sore spot. His silence infuriated me even more, and I stormed out of the room. For a while, I needed to stay nearby in case anything happened. But there was no way I was going to spend time at home with him. Fortunately, I had saved most of my salary to give back to Mom, so staying in a hotel wouldn't be a financial burden. I chose a relatively inexpensive hotel that allowed long stays and provided a good place to rest. In the room of the hotel I had selected. I knew my suit would get wrinkled, but I was too exhausted to care and collapsed onto the bed. I let out a sigh. I hadn't brought anything with me, so I'd need to get some clothes. And though I wasn't looking forward to it, I had to prepare the handover documents. There were probably many other things I needed to do that I wasn't aware of yet. But despite all this, my body wouldn't listen to me at all. At that moment, I heard a short vibration from the bag I had left beside me. Something had come through on my smartphone, which was still on silent mode. I forced myself to move, reaching for the bag and pulling out my phone. It was a text message notification. The sender was Mom.
Erica, thank you for coming to see me earlier.
Such simple, everyday words. Even just that warmed my heart. But my expression froze at the next sentence.
Please forgive Dad for earlier. He was just trying to cheer you up in his own way.
I quickly closed the text. Once again, I was overwhelmed with frustration and sadness, tears streaming down my face.
What is wrong with that man? Trying to cheer me up? That's a joke. How could he say Mom looked better when she was so weak right in front of him?
As tears flowed, sobs began to escape my throat. In this space where no one would scold me or worry about me, I let my emotions take over and cried aloud. I poured out my grief and resentment towards that man who pretended to be my father for what felt like forever. From that day on, I visited Mom almost every day. Maybe to avoid the awkwardness or because he had other important things to do. I hadn't seen that man since our confrontation. It would infuriate me if we met, but knowing he wasn't around angered me as well. Please, let her recover. Let a miracle happen. I silently mocked myself for such hopes as the disease continued to consume Mom, her already thin body wasting away to skin and bones. And a few weeks after being called to the hospital, despite my desperate wishes, Mom finally passed away. The funeral was to be held with only close family. However, due to the local customs and Mom's reputation, many people came to pay their last respects. From those I knew to those I didn't, many came. Given her career in publishing, people involved in editing and even those from the field visited. As for that man, he served as the funeral organizer, owing to his position as her husband. Seeing him interact with the attendees and funeral staff so insincerely made my blood boil. The funeral proceeded without any issues. I had heard rumors that sometimes personal accessories are stolen during burials. However, the dull gleam of the wedding ring that remained in the coffin spoke of the bond between that man and Mom. Why did it have to remain? I thought it would have been better if it had been stolen, such a disrespectful thought towards the staff, I realized later. But it showed how deep my anger and resentment ran. I didn't know, nor did I want to know, the fate of the ring afterward. Presumably, the funeral organizer, that man, would handle it. As far as I was concerned, it would be easier if it just disappeared. It was in this state of exhaustion and indifference that I sat there, lost in thought.
My condolences.
An elderly gentleman I did not recognize spoke to me. Beside him was a woman, holding onto his arm, likely due to her blindness. I quickly straightened my posture and greeted them.
Thank you for being here for Mom today. Were you one of her colleagues?
His face was unfamiliar. When I asked, the woman began to tremble slightly. Had I said something to upset her? I hurried to apologize, but before I could.
You've grown so much, Erica. You're an adult now, but I recognize your voice.
After the funeral, I found myself in the family room with the elderly gentleman and woman, along with my dad, Lyle, and a few relatives who had noticed the couple's presence. The gentleman introduced himself as Raoul Larner, and the woman as Casey Larner. I sat across from them, confused, with Lyle uncomfortably beside me. Then Casey began to explain. Her story was almost impossible to comprehend. Casey claimed to be my biological mother. Born with a visual impairment, she had been abandoned by my biological father as soon as her pregnancy was discovered. Stigmatized by her disability, Casey doubted her ability to raise a child alone. She turned to my mom, Claire, who had been supportive when Casey worked at a Braille book publishing company. At that time, Claire and Lyle had been trying for a child but had been unable to conceive, and Claire was past the ideal age for pregnancy. So, with Casey's consent, I was adopted by the Lyle couple. This sudden revelation left me speechless. Mistaking my silence for anger, Raoul tried to offer support.
I know I have no right to say this, but please don't blame Casey. She didn't plan to reveal herself today. I encouraged her to.
I'm sorry. Raoul apologized, and Casey followed suit, tears streaming down her face.
Oh, please don't. I'm just shocked by everything I've heard. I'm not angry.
I reassured them both and remembered something Casey had said earlier. You met Mom at a Braille book publishing company.
Could it be?
I turned to look at Dad, who was standing behind us. Anticipating my wrath, Dad's expression was sad but resigned. I approached him, ready to confront him.
Hey, you used to teach me Braille with Mom when I was little, didn't you?
Was that because of this? Caught off guard, Dad looked stunned. But then, he gave a gentle smile and nodded.
Mom and I thought you might meet Casey someday. We wanted you to be ready for that.
I had always found it strange. Unlike other kids, I had been taught Braille by my parents. I had assumed it was related to Mom's job, but…
Mom!
Understanding Mom's intention and discovering a new side of Dad's kindness, I couldn't hold back the tears that hadn't fallen during the funeral. They started to flow, one after another, until I was sobbing uncontrollably.
I'm back, Mom.
A year had passed since Mom's death. I returned to my hometown a little earlier than planned and visited Mom's grave.
I've learned a lot from Casey and Dad since then.
I still found it hard to call him Dad. But knowing the truth, calling him that man seemed disrespectful. According to Casey, Lyle had always had a kind heart, which made it difficult for him to refuse work-related social gatherings. He often ended up overdoing it. He even became a guarantor for a loan and had to cover it himself. Mom had supported Dad all along, drawn to his kindness, even when it meant overextending herself.
Honestly, I can't forgive Dad for what he did.
But knowing the truth, I can't just act like a child and shut him out. I mentioned that I now replied to his texts. Like a child giving a report, and it made me smile.
Oh, and about Casey. After she parted ways with Mom and Dad, she met someone wonderful.
After giving me up for adoption, Casey had cut off all contact with Mom and Dad. They never showed it in front of me, but they were always worried about her. She worked as a masseuse at a hotel. That's where she met Raul, the one who brought us together. I made sure to report on Raul and Casey's happy life together.
Raul is such a good person. We have tea regularly, and when I told him I'd quit my job… Oh, I hadn't mentioned this, but I'd already quit my job back then. I'm sorry for keeping quiet.
I apologized, but quickly added.
Now I have a new job, thanks to Raul. He introduced me to a florist. It's tough, but I enjoy it every day.
I smiled, trying to ease any worries. Then, I filled a vase with water and placed a white flower in it. The flower was a Rigerin philadelphicus. Mom's favorite. It's a flower that can bloom beautifully in any environment, much like how she hoped I would grow, strong and resilient. It was the flower I was named after. A gentle breeze rustled the petals, as if Mom were fondly recalling the past. The flower's meaning is reminiscent love. That day, I guess I was pretty worn out from everything, because after I put my daughter Nicola to bed in her crib, I went to my bedroom and fell asleep instantly. A few hours must have passed when I suddenly woke up. It was Nicola's crying in the night that did it. Still half asleep, I checked the time on my mobile phone. 1 a.m., huh? Good thing I got a little nap today. I dragged my tired body up, planning to go to the living room and soothe Nicola. Just then, I heard a shouting voice.
Shut up! Be quiet!
For a moment, I couldn't tell where the voice was coming from. I thought maybe my MIL, Jamie, was yelling at me from her room, so I said,
Yes! I'm coming to soothe her now!
And opened the living room door. There, right in front of me, was Jamie, standing over the crib, glaring at Nicola. And the next moment,
Enough already!
She slapped Nicola's face.
What are you doing?
I yelled louder than I ever had before. Jamie looked surprised for a second.
Why didn't you soothe her sooner? This child is so noisy.
Then she yelled back. In a panic, I rushed over to the crib and lifted Nicola to protect her from Jamie.
I can't believe this. Hitting a baby.
My name is Candace, a 28-year-old housewife. I used to be an office worker, but I'm currently on maternity leave, focusing on housework and childcare. My husband Miles and I started living with Jamie, my MIL, about a year ago. With Miles's job being demanding and him rarely home, and because he was worried about leaving me alone while I was pregnant, and also feeling sorry for Jamie being alone since my FIL Willis passed away 2 years ago, we decided to move in with her. At first, living together went well, but gradually, Jamie started showing her true colors, and honestly, I was having a hard time. Candace, you're really slow at housework, aren't you? Can't you make better food? I'm sorry. Jamie harassed me every chance she got. When Willis was still alive, I didn't have any issues when visiting my in-laws' house. So, I didn't particularly dislike Jamie back then. However, after Willis passed away and we started living together, Jamie became an unbearably selfish and rude presence in my life.
Hurry up with the housework. You're really useless, you know. Slow. Ugly.
Jamie keeps insulting me like this. The last part was just mean and had nothing to do with housework. Since I'm pregnant, it's natural for me to be slow with chores. But Jamie doesn't seem to care about that. She just seems desperate to harass me. As for Miles, he's mostly away on business trips and doesn't get home until midnight even when he's not traveling. So, I have to spend most of my days with Jamie. I kept hoping that things would change once the baby was born. Even Jamie, rough as she is, would surely become kinder and gentler living with her grandchild. I was desperately holding on to that hope. I do consult Miles about it on WhatsApp, keeping it to a level that won't trouble his work, and he does reply with, "I'm really sorry. I wish I could be there for you during tough times." He also takes care to admonish Jamie when they meet. Knowing that Miles is on my side gives me a little relief. That's why I could bear being scolded by Jamie for not doing the housework well enough while pregnant. Later, I safely gave birth to a baby. A healthy baby girl. Miles, bless him, managed to get permission from his company, saying, "The baby is being born." He left work early and rushed to the hospital just before I gave birth. When he held our newborn daughter,
She's really cute, like an angel.
and he looked so happy and said, I was happy too, having given birth to the child of the man I love. I reported the birth of our healthy baby girl to Jamie through WhatsApp. I thought she might come to visit in the hospital since we live together, but Jamie didn't show up. She didn't even reply on WhatsApp. Could it be that she's not interested in her granddaughter? I started to feel a cold sweat. Will this harassment continue even now? As I was dreading that thought, the door to my hospital room opened.
Candace, how are you feeling?
Lila.
Wow, what a cute baby. It's a girl, right? She's going to be beautiful.
It was my sister-in-law, Lila, who came to visit. Lila is very kind and cheerful, and she's always been good to me. I've always loved Lila. She's already married and has children, so I had decided to consult her about parenting. What's her name?
Miles and I decided to name her Nicola.
Ah, that's a nice name. Wait, hasn't Mom come? No. I did contact her, but she ignored the read receipt.
Oh, I see. She's really a pain sometimes, isn't she? Unpredictable and lacking common sense.
Ha ha ha. Well, yeah. Lila is straightforward, and I've always appreciated that about her. She once told me,
If you ever have a problem living with Mom, feel free to vent to me.
that really saved me. So, I used to honestly complain to Lila when things got really tough. Lila understood Jamie's difficult nature, so she knew that if she scolded Jamie based on what I told her, Jamie would end up taking it out on me. That's why she wouldn't admonish Jamie unless it was really necessary. At that time, just being able to vent was enough to relieve my stress. I had no idea things would get harder after Nicola was born.
Jamie, I'm back.
When I got discharged from the hospital and returned home with Nicola, Jamie didn't mention Nicola at all. "Hurry up and clean," she said. I couldn't believe it. It was as if she completely ignored Nicola's existence. Despite feeling upset, I put Nicola in her crib and started cleaning. About 5 minutes later, Jamie started yelling.
Candace! Come here!
Yes, what is it?
That baby is noisy. Do something about her crying.
I'm sorry. Again, I couldn't believe it. Referring to her as that baby as if she's a nuisance, and telling me to do something about her crying. Jamie continued to treat Nicola poorly.
The baby is crying. It stinks. Change her diaper now. The crib is in the way. Shut up, baby.
Jamie shouted these things. Each time Jamie yelled, Nicola would cry louder in fright, which made Jamie even angrier. It was a very uncomfortable atmosphere for Nicola and me. Jamie, her name is Nicola. Can you please call her by her name?
Shut up. Don't tell me what to do. You're her mother, so it's your job to take care of her. Make sure I'm comfortable. Look, she's crying again.
Nicola had started crying because Jamie yelled. I had just put her to bed. I had to stop my chores and go soothe Nicola. And if that delays the housework, she'll get mad about that too. When I put Nicola back to bed and resumed my chores, Jamie said,
This is really in the way. Takes up so much space.
And kicked the crib. The crib shook, and Nicola woke up crying again.
What are you doing, Jamie? Shut up. It's your fault for putting such a big thing here.
But it was you who told us to put the bed in the living room because it's noisy when she cries at night in our room.
Are you complaining to me now? Stop arguing and soothe that noisy child.
That noisy child. This person is really the worst. I had no choice but to do my chores while holding Nicola. Trying to balance housework and childcare without angering Jamie was really tough, and I was gradually getting exhausted. If I focused too much on childcare, "You're really slow at housework," I'd be scolded. And if I focused on chores,
"The child is noisy. Can't you raise her properly?"
I'd be berated for parenting. Miles was away on a business trip for about 2 months and wasn't home. I couldn't bear it and tried consulting him over WhatsApp and phone, but he seemed busy and couldn't talk long. Miles apologized many times, saying, "I'm really sorry for the hard times." But I felt guilty making him apologize when he was working so hard for our family. Then, something unbelievable happened. That day, maybe because I was so tired, I fell asleep as soon as I put Nicola in her crib and went to my bedroom. A few hours must have passed when I suddenly woke up. It was Nicola's crying in the night that did it. Still half asleep, I checked the time on my mobile phone. 1 a.m. Good thing I got a little nap today. I dragged my tired body up, planning to go to the living room and soothe Nicola. Just then, I heard a shouting voice.
"Shut up! Be quiet.
For a moment, I couldn't tell where the voice was coming from. I thought maybe Jamie was yelling at me from her room, so I said,
Yes. I'm coming to soothe her now.
And opened the living room door. There, right in front of me, was Jamie, standing over the crib, glaring at Nicola. And the next moment,
Enough already.
she slapped Nicola's face.
Eek! What are you doing?
I yelled louder than I ever had before. Jamie looked surprised for a second.
Why didn't you soothe her sooner? She's so noisy, this child.
Then she yelled back. In a panic, I rushed over to the crib and lifted Nicola to protect her from Jamie.
I can't believe this. Hitting a baby.
Could this person really be human, hitting a 3-month-old baby? Nicola was crying louder than I had ever heard before. And her face had turned red. I immediately called an ambulance. At the hospital, the doctor examined Nicola. He said her face was red, but there was no worry about bruises or injuries, which relieved me. I almost collapsed on the spot. What happened? Did you drop her on the floor or something? The doctor asked. I explained the situation to the doctor. Right then, Lila entered the room.
Candace, is Nicola okay? Oh, Lila.
In my panic, I had called Lila while on the ambulance. Miles was on a business trip and couldn't come immediately. So I called Lila, despite it being the middle of the night. Lila explained to the doctor about Jamie hitting Nicola. The doctor was speechless, and Lila was shaking with anger. The next day, I went home with Lila. I deliberately entered the house alone. Jamie acted as if nothing happened, harassing me as usual. You're late. Hurry up and make breakfast. You missed taking out the trash because you came home in the morning. You really can't do housework.
Enough already. Did you forget what happened yesterday? Jamie hit a 3-month-old baby, remember? How can you act so normally? First, apologize for yesterday.
Jamie's face turned red with anger.
What? Why should I apologize? That child was the noisy one. I just slapped her because she wouldn't listen. It's part of discipline. I thought she wouldn't be quiet otherwise.
That's not discipline. It's just violence.
Enough, so noisy. Just do your chores already.
I was astounded.
So, you don't regret it at all? Don't even think you did anything wrong? Lila, please come in.
Lila entered the living room as I called her.
Why is Lila here? Mom, what are you doing? I can't believe you did such a thing. No, that's,
Jamie was flustered by Lila's arrival.
Mom, you do realize that what you did is legally punishable, right?
Jamie's face turned pale.
Lila, you're not going to sue your own mother, are you? The one who's going to sue is Candace. I'll just be her lawyer. But wait. It was just a part of her education. Who would agree that hitting a baby is education? This is a case of assault.
No matter how much Jamie tried to justify, such an act could never be excused.
I'll definitely sue you. Be prepared,
I told Jamie. Then, Jamie began to cry quietly. I'm sorry, Candace. I always lose control when I get angry and end up regretting it later. I've always been depressed and regretful about how I treated you and Nicola. I truly am sorry for what happened. Why did I raise my hand to her? I always wanted a boy for the eldest grandson. It was also Willis's wish.
Willis's wish?
It might be an old-fashioned thought,
but we always hoped for a boy to carry on the family line, and when a girl was born instead, I was happy about the birth of a granddaughter, but also felt like I failed to fulfill a promise to Willis, and every time I got angry, I couldn't control myself.
I'm really sorry. Jamie continued, speaking through her tears. Please, Candace, change me. I'll do anything. Jamie said this and then deeply apologized.
Jamie, please calm down. Let's talk properly first.
No, I've done something terrible. No amount of apologies will ever be enough. Jamie kept apologizing repeatedly. I felt my heart wavering and almost forgave Jamie. Jamie. That's when Lila spoke up.
Don't take her seriously, Candace. Mom always pretends to be deeply remorseful like this when she's cornered, just to end criticism against her. Eh? She did the same when Dad found out about her affair. He forgave her because he fell for her act, but her tears dried up immediately afterward. This is probably just an act too, right? You can't fool me.
Lila's observation made Jamie falter.
What are you saying, Lila?
Looking closely, Jamie's tears, which were flowing heavily just a moment ago, had already dried up. It was likely fake crying.
Jamie, I can't forgive you anymore. How twisted can you be to try to weasel out of what you've done? Wait a minute. I'm not trying to escape anything. Okay, I understand. But we've already decided to take legal action.
As I said that, Jamie's face turned red with anger.
Don't joke with me. Why should I be subjected to this by a dater-in-law like you? How insolent!
Just then, the sound of the house key turning was heard.
Candace. Is Nicola safe? Miles! Why are you here?
I had only contacted him on WhatsApp. I thought Miles couldn't come since he was on a business trip.
I called him several times in the middle of the night. Then he drove straight here.
Miles had been driving since 3 a.m. and arrived this morning.
I didn't know Miles was coming too. Mom, cut it out. I've been hearing about your harassment from Candace, and I've been warning you every time, haven't I? And now you've gone and hit my precious Nicola? I'll never forgive you for this. Miles, even you're blaming me? How cruel, after I raised you and Lila. What are you talking about? Mom always left us with Aunt to play around. Our memories are filled with the meals Aunt cooked, not you. Mom, just give it up. Besides, I think the doctor already reported it yesterday. Eh? The hospital knows Mom hit her, so I think it's just a matter of time before the police come. No. Wait. You're okay with your mother being arrested? I'd rather not have someone who hits a 3-month-old baby around. No matter what you say, Mom, you have no one on your side now.
Jamie finally seemed to understand her situation, pale-faced and slumped. Soon, the police arrived and Jamie was arrested. As a first-time offender, she received a suspended sentence, but Miles and Lila cut ties with her and issued restraining orders against her. Miles moved out of the in-laws' house with me and Nicola and rented an apartment. While looking for a place, we stayed briefly with Lila, which was a great help.
Candace, I'm really sorry for everything. I'll take a parental leave. If I can't get it, I'll change departments or even jobs to ensure your and Nicola's safety.
I was so happy to hear Miles say that. His company had some issues with the working environment, and he couldn't get parental leave, so he resigned and found another job. Now he comes home on time, helps with Nicola and the housework. We live in a high-rise near Lila's family, often gathering for meals or enjoying barbecues. I don't know what's become of Jamie, but I heard from neighbors that after her arrest, she's become completely isolated and doesn't go out anymore. Prideful Jamie probably can't bear being known as someone who did such terrible things. Well, it doesn't matter to me anymore, and she doesn't know where we moved, so there's no chance of meeting or her showing up unexpectedly. I plan to live happily, supporting each other as a family with Miles, Nicola, and Lila's family.